My Marvel superhero girlfriend. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 276. To all the extraordinary people in the world. Inside every deck of the Grand Era cruise ship, passengers and crew paused to listen to a man's voice booming over the loudspeaker. Initially, some mistook it for a cruise ship event. After a polite greeting, the mysterious man announced, "My name is Lex Luthor, and I'm the initiator of this ship's banquet. Right now, on this ship, gathered superheroes from around the world, both famous and emerging, as well as criminals and villains who murder and violate the law. Whatever your reasons for being here, I'm deeply grateful for your participation." As soon as Lex Luthor finished speaking, the people on the cruise ship erupted in excitement, looking around in confusion. Lex Luthor? Is he the heinous criminal on the run from Metropolis? Are there real superheroes here? And criminal villains? I just saw Iron Man, Tony Stark. The superheroes in the cabins looked gravely. No one could have imagined Lex Luthor would publicly announce this. What was he planning? You must be very curious about my purpose in doing this. Lex Luthor continued with a smile. In fact, my purpose has been achieved from the moment you boarded the ship. No one spoke on the huge and luxurious cruise ship, only Lex Luthor's voice echoed in every cabin. This world was originally beautiful and peaceful, but due to the continuous emergence of extraordinary forces and characters, it has begun to become complicated and turbulent. Many people even worship Kryptonians with extraordinary powers as gods of the mortal world, and even pray for their help when they are in danger. This is simply ridiculous. You must know that those who are not of my race must have different hearts. In recent years, a number of extraordinary people have become so-called superheroes, thereby gaining the respect and love of the world, and thus becoming the minority who control the world. Even if they kill people and make mistakes, they will be forgiven by the world. Why? Lex Luthor's words became a little crazy, and he quickly calmed down and sneered. Have you ever thought that superheroes, as extraordinary beings, are themselves disasters and hidden dangers to this world? For example, Superman, if he hadn't come to Earth, Kryptonian warships wouldn't have invaded a few years ago. Metropolis wouldn't have fallen, and the civilian population wouldn't have suffered heavy casualties. Thor, for example. If there weren't the gods, there wouldn't have been the alien invasion in the Battle of New York. The world would be a better place without the Beyonders. Lex Luthor harbors an immense dislike for the Beyonders. This is tinged with a deep envy of those who possess them. Why are some Beyonders born with a gift of success, able to reach the pinnacle of life as superheroes? And yet, he's worked hard his entire life, becoming a multimillionaire CEO, yet he's still overshadowed by the Beyonders. In his view, the Beyonders are diminishing humanity's inherent potential. Since the future of this world will ultimately fall into the hands of the superhumans, we might as well decide the outcome as soon as possible. Lex Luthor sneered. This ship is currently carrying nearly every superhuman from around the world. Regardless of your stance, I look forward to your next performance. The future this cruise ship is about to usher in will also be the future of the world to come. A true grand era. Lex Luthor finished his words and turned off his microphone. Somewhere in a cabin, he sighed, wearily sitting back in a chair, slowly closing his eyes. The game was set. What's about to happen here? Inside the cabin, the passengers were in a state of panic. Now, on the third floor, Merritt, no matter what happens, stay behind me and don't run around. Looking at the panic-stricken cabin, Susan rose from her chair with a manly force and spoke seriously. You. A strange light flashed in Mara's beautiful eyes, and she also stood up from her chair, only to spot a familiar figure. Fifth deck. Batman, come out. Carrying a gleaming katana, Deathstroke stepped from the deck into the fifth deck. His undisguised, fierce aura sent many passengers screaming and fleeing. Brother, what's with all the rage? I don't see any bats or spiders. Just then, a yawning figure emerged from the crowd, bucking the flow. He was dressed in a non-metallic red leather bodysuit, a red hood, and white eye patches. Similar to Deathstroke's, he slung two katanas across his back. Seeing him, Deathstroke asked gravely, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to impersonate you." "Haha, just kidding. Don't stare at me with one eye." "Oh, I almost forgot you only have one eye left." Deadpool, seemingly unleashing a conversational flurry, finally spread his hands and said, "Haven't you heard? I recently joined the Avengers as an intern. So, you're here to stop me?" Deathstroke sneered. Just catching up, just catching up." Deadpool waved his hand, saying, "We're brothers." He hadn't finished his words when, with a thud, a samurai sword plunged into Deadpool's throat, the blade piercing his leather jacket and exiting through his back, splashing blood. Deathstroke stepped forward, grasped the katana's handle, and spoke in a chilling voice, "Who calls you a brother?" On the 10th deck, Supergirl Kara and Spider-Woman Gwen stood side by side, their faces solemn. Ahead of them, the lights in the cabin gradually dimmed, and darkness surged forward like a tide. Long, jet-black hair faintly emerged from the cabin, and a strange female figure appeared. Draped in a black cloak, her face ashen, she seemed formless, emanating an ominous, powerful energy. If Nian were present, he would undoubtedly recognize her as the exact same witch statue depicted in the archaeological texts. The being suspected of possessing John Munn, the Enchantress. In the other cabin area on the 5th floor, a cute, young green-haired girl stood not far in front of Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne, blocking their path. "You do it, or should I? I'm merciless when it comes to teaching kids a lesson," Tony Stark said casually. Batman ignored him and stepped towards the girl. However, before he could get close, his massive frame, clad in a black batsuit, suddenly flew backwards without warning. "No way." Tony Stark looked at the green light shimmering around the girl's hands, then at Batman, who had been flung back over 10 meters, knocking over several bar chairs. Without hesitation, he tapped the side of his black-framed glasses with his finger. A light flashed, and a layer of metal coating automatically coated his body, forming a complete set of metal armor in less than a second. White light shone from the energy bar on his chest and the metal eye sockets. "Little boy, don't act rashly, otherwise Iron Man raised his left hand to hold the engine, and before he finished speaking, he flew backwards with his armor. Chapter 277 Extraordinary Melee, The Crisis of the Greek Years. On the 2nd deck. "Sam, go contact the outside and arrange for the passengers to evacuate this ship." A tall, muscular white young man opened his backpack, pulled out a pentagram-shaped round shield, and strapped it to his left wrist. A vibranium round shield. "Okay, Captain." A black man accompanying him nodded quickly and headed out onto the deck. As he walked, a pair of steel wings unfolded from his backpack. Captain America, Steve Rogers, donned his signature weapon and looked around, only to be stunned again. A man with a silver metal left hand stood around the corner, his eyes gazing at him through his messy hair. "Bucky, is that you?" Captain America, startled, rushed forward. On the 8th deck. "Has anything happened in the cabins above and below?" Barry Allen, the Flash, took a deep breath. Facing the chaotic crowd around him, he moved in his crimson suit, transforming into a streak of crimson lightning. Crimson lightning streaked through the gaps between the passengers. The Flash was about to head down to the lower level to reunite with Cyborg, his teammate on the lower level. Zzz! At that moment, a silver streak of light also pierced through the gaps between the passengers, zigzagging towards the crimson lightning. The crimson lightning froze first. The Flash, startled, took a few steps back, his eyes wide open as he watched the silver figure that had also stopped in front of him. It was a being as small as a child. Encased in silver metal armor, its features were impossible to discern. The armor's sharp corners were defined, and a helmet with goggles perched on its forehead, like a ninja. But Barry Allen, the Flash, knew one thing: the other person was undoubtedly a speedster. Anyone else who has mastered the Speed Force? A child. The Flash was incredulous. Then, one level below, on the 7th deck. Passengers screamed and fled. Bang! Cyborg Victor Stone's coat and trousers ripped apart mid-air, revealing his massive, highly mechanized form. He slammed into the reinforced inner wall of the cabin, leaving a distinct, human-shaped dent with a deafening thud. Seeing the passengers fleeing, Cyborg activated the weapon engine on his shoulder and unleashed a small missile forward. Boom! The missile accurately struck the immobile, towering target, engulfing the enemy in an orange-yellow explosion. However, the smoke cleared, revealing the target unscathed. "What the hell are you?" Cyborg's left eye and chest glowed red. He gazed at the figure standing in the cabin ahead, and for the first time, he was struck by a realm he couldn't comprehend. It was a being with a typical male model's build, draped in a black cape. It wore no clothing, its entire body constructed entirely of metal, an extremely hard metal. Its entire body was coated in a dark, anthropomorphic physique, its muscular outlines distinct. The head was also made of metal, a dot of green light atop it, a crystal stone gleaming with a faint green sheen. A body forged of vibranium, a forward ornament inlaid with kryptonite, armor technology highly similar to Iron Man's, and intelligent computing within it rivaling that of Apocalypse. Cyborg scanned it quickly. The more he analyzed it, the more astonished he became. Could this be an intelligent monster created by humans? The kryptonite vibranium robot remained expressionless as it coldly replied, "My name is Black Vision." On the fourth deck. Boom boom boom. A red giant, over 2 meters tall, sprinted through the cabin. Each stride shook the entire level, leaving large, indented footprints in its wake. The giant didn't attack the pale, limp passengers along its path. Instead, it rushed towards a specific location and reached out its massive hand to grab a man in overalls sitting in a chair. "Found you." The giant grinned coldly. Dr. Banner stared at the giant in astonishment, his body instinctively struggling. "Die?" The red giant growled, flinging Dr. Banner's body to the ground. His massive foot stomped down, crushing the cabin floorboards deeply. An ordinary person would have been reduced to pulp long ago, but the giant didn't stop. Just as he was about to break through to the next level, snap! The giant's foot suddenly stopped. A large green hand reached out from the depression below and slowly lifted the giant's foot upwards. Meanwhile, on the 6th level, through the jellyfish fragments scattered throughout the Grand Air cruise ship, Nian instantly became aware of the numerous extraordinary events unfolding on board. Among them, several areas concerned him greatly. Pietro, Boss Polaris, Black Vision. Nian frowned, but quickly forced himself to calm down. He said in a deep voice, "Wanda, let's first." Before the young man could finish his words, Nian felt his head begin to spin. He yawned instinctively, and his eyelids felt slightly heavy, as if they were made of lead. "I'm so sleepy, I want to sleep." "Wait, what's this?" The moment Nian realized something was wrong, his eyes had already closed. He slumped over in the chair, drifting off to sleep, the red cloth on his wrist glowing faintly. "Young master." Wanda hurriedly nudged Nian's shoulder, but he showed no sign of waking. "Is that the little raven? Where is it?" Wanda, as if remembering something, quickly glanced around, but even she couldn't find the raven this time. But its ability to lull people to sleep must be that raven. "Wanda, something's wrong. Take Nian back first." Guan Luo's thoughts echoed in Wanda's mind. "Okay." Wanda nodded, her small hand draped with a hanging ring. She drew circles, and a spark of light immediately ignited in the air ahead. The portal hadn't yet formed. Nearby, the quiet sound of high heels approaching on the floor could be heard. Wanda looked back in shock. A beautiful woman in a gorgeous diamond gown, her bodice a captivating, voluptuous white, her dazzling blonde hair cascading down her bare shoulders and waist in waves. "What did I find? A little witch?" the woman in the diamond gown exclaimed in surprise. "Who are you?" Wanda, unable to open the portal in time, could only step forward, her tiny figure, dressed in Little Red Riding Hood, blocking the sleeping boy's path. "My name is Emma Frost. You can call me sister, or the White Queen," the White Queen said with cool grace. "I can't even read your mind. Who are you protecting?" "Your little boyfriend." The White Queen glanced at the sleeping boy behind Wanda. Her instinctive telepathy resonated, and her face suddenly paled, her delicate body trembling with fear. She looked as if she had witnessed a most horrific thing. Chapter 278 Raven, Change into Ant. A bright beam of light seeped through the gap between the curtains and landed between his eyebrows. Nian slowly opened his eyes, his gaze dazed as he stared blankly at the familiar yet unfamiliar surroundings of his room. On his bed sat a large pillow, designed specifically for children to play with. "I remember being on a boat, but now I'm in bed." Nian rubbed his eyes, then froze for a moment. He was met with a pair of delicate, white hands. A child's ring. The old-fashioned alarm clock beside the bell rang. Nian's small body instinctively crawled over and stopped it. "Oh, right. Today's Monday. I have to go to elementary school." Dazed, as if remembering something, Xinian quickly jumped out of bed and began to change into his outdoor clothes. In the mirror in the closet, he reflected a little boy, about a meter tall, with black hair, brown eyes, and delicate features like a girl. He put on his clothes, shouldered his school bag, and pushed open the door. At this moment, inside the mirror, a raven with jet black wings had suddenly appeared, its animal eyes watching Xiao Xinian leave the room. Skipping the washing and breakfast routine, Xinian didn't notice anything strange. He tiptoed to open the door and was about to run out to school alone. "Xinian," a gentle and pleasant voice called from behind him, "can you go alone?" Xinian turned and said confidently, "Aunt Diana, I'm fine." Sexy, languid black hair, a white gauze top, and black trousers made the woman look straight and slender. A tall, graceful figure sauntered gracefully out of the room. "Come here." The dark-haired woman squatted in the hall, her waist and hips forming a perfectly stunning curve. Even more stunning was her face, as exquisite as if created by a god. "Yes, Auntie," Xiao Xinian sighed, trotting forward and kissing the dark-haired woman on the left cheek. "Be careful," the dark-haired woman returned the kiss, placing a kiss on his right cheek. "I know, stop treating me like a kid," Xinian muttered, shouldering his school bag, and ran out of the house. On the way to school, little Xinian touched his right cheek, a faint blush rising, his mind lost in thought. Just then, a black raven flew down from the sky and landed on his shoulder. I think I've seen you somewhere." Unfazed, little Xinian reached out and scooped the raven into his arms. He stroked its head and muttered, "Other cats and dogs transform. Little raven, can you? I'm not asking for much. At least like my aunt, right? Well, a little less than that isn't out of the question. Raven mother, transform for me." Reality. Inside the 6th floor cabin, Xinian slept soundly on the bar table, his lips curled slightly, as if he were dreaming a sweet dream. Wanda, dressed as Little Red Riding Hood, stood in front of Xinian, wary of the sudden appearance of a mysterious woman calling herself the White Queen. The White Queen used telepathy to try to read the comatose boy's mind, but her beautiful, cold face suddenly turned pale. In that instant, she beheld a black demon, like one from Hades, and her heart trembled. He's in danger if targeted by a being like that. The White Queen's eyes flickered, weighing the pros and cons before signaling to Wanda, "Take him away from here. I won't stop you." Not wanting to provoke the demon targeting the boy, yet also feeling an inexplicable urge to help, the White Queen simply ignored them and let them go. After all, the young witch and the black-haired boy weren't their targets. Wanda remained vigilant, covering Nian with her magical levitation cloak while attempting to reopen the portal. The White Queen stood motionless, watching from a distance, as if she were determined to let them go. But then, a beautiful young woman in a leopard print coat, with a voluptuous figure, emerged from the cabin. "Emma, it's already started. What are you doing here?" A beautiful young woman in a leopard print coat spoke lazily, like a leopard waking from a deep sleep. She didn't even have boots on, her snow-white, smooth feet treading on tiptoe, her muscles relaxed. When she saw the young man sleeping on the table in the cabin bar, she was startled for a moment, then her eyes lit up with the excitement of finding her prized prey. She instinctively licked her lips with her glistening tongue. "I didn't expect to see you here. Barbara, do you know them?" the White Queen asked curiously. Leopard Barbara said with delight, "I don't know them. But that boy, his name is Nian Prince, and he was raised by Wonder Woman." "The Wonder Woman, I understand." The White Queen was stunned. "Diana Prince, who else could it be besides her?" Leopard Barbara sneered, then said, "You didn't see her last time at school, that desperate, protective look. I haven't seen her with that expression in decades. Clearly, he's Wonder Woman's weak spot," Barbara said with certainty. The White Queen's eyes were stern as she stared at Wanda, who was protecting Nian. She said gravely, "In that case, you can't leave here for now. I don't care about anything else. He's my prey." Leopard Barbara unbuttoned her leopard print coat, revealing only a thin undershirt underneath. Her permed blonde hair flowed down, and her beautiful eyes, like a beast, revealed a fierce possessiveness. With a whirlwind of movement, she erupted within the cabin, transforming into a leopard shadow and pouncing on the sleeping boy sprawled across the bar. It was a speed that even human vision could barely capture. Leopard Barbara, approaching, extended her right hand towards Nian. Just as her hand was about to touch the boy, whoosh! The hem of the Red Noble's cloak fluttered, a corner of it automatically wrapping around Leopard Woman's right hand, stopping her movement. Oh! Surprise crossed Leopard Woman's beautiful eyes, and she glanced sideways at the crimson-cloaked girl standing guard beside Nian. Don't touch him. You are not allowed to touch him. Wanda's doll-like face was colder than ever. Her words, though unfamiliar, were firm enough. Her small hand quickly formed a golden aura and thrust it towards Leopard Woman. Feeling a hint of heat and suppression, Leopard Woman was startled and suddenly struggled to free herself from the cloak, retreating 3 meters away from Wanda and Nian. The White Queen behind her said, "Don't underestimate her. She's a little witch with high mental defenses. I can't even read her mind." A witch? Interesting. Leopard Woman was not surprised, but delighted, her eyes gleaming with a cold light. I've never hunted a witch before. Chapter 279 Nian's Dream, Raven and Ant. In the afternoon, after school, little Nian returned home, his school bag slung over his shoulder. The streets of the olden days seemed familiar to Nian. As if he'd seen them in a dream? The Raven glanced around, its face bewildered. Passing an alley, Nian faintly heard a childish female voice, a cry for help. "Let that girl go." The Raven perched on his shoulder flew off in fright. Without hesitation, little Nian dashed into the alley. Woo woo. Tears streamed down the face of the short, blonde-haired little girl like pearls falling from a string. "It's okay, it's okay. Gwen, it's okay. Daddy's already killed a bad guy." The tall, handsome man in a police uniform soothed. He reached out to touch the little girl's head, but halfway through, realizing his hands might be a little dirty, he stopped. Wow, someone's been beaten to death. Little Gwen's sobs intensified. This. Officer George, who had just fired heavily at the criminal, was unsure how to comfort his frightened daughter. Just then, a delicate, yet grubby, hand reached out from the side and landed directly on the little girl's radiant blonde hair. "Don't cry. Crying for that guy isn't worth it," little Nian said loudly, stroking little Gwen's head. Gwen actually stopped crying obediently, her hazy eyes fixed on the boy. "Thank you for saving my daughter," Officer George said sincerely, removing Nian's dirty hand from Gwen's head. "I just bought time." Little Nian shrugged, his other hand stroking Gwen's soft blonde hair, causing Officer George's eye to twitch. "I feel like I've experienced all of this before," little Nian muttered. He was about to say something, but suddenly realized that besides the police and medical staff on the scene, at the entrance of the alley, a tall, beautiful figure had stood quietly, staring at him. "Auntie," Nian called out with a smile, waving his hand and rushing over, only to be stunned again. But Auntie suddenly squatted down and hugged him tightly, breathing in the faint scent of violets on her body. Little Nian suddenly realized something. He had never wanted to be a superhero, saving the world. "Auntie, being with you forever is the best dream, the dream I ever wanted." A raven perched on the eaves watched the scene silently, then flapped its wings and took off, its jet-black wings covering the sky, instantly turning it into night. Still in a dream. At night, Nian returned home. He took off his oversized sneakers at the door, changed into slippers, and hung his fashionable shoulder bag by the door. His former childlike body had transformed into the adult form of a teenager. "I'm back," Nian called into the house, but the place was deserted, no one answered. "Auntie isn't back yet," Nian muttered to himself, feeling a subtle sense of disharmony. It seemed like besides my aunt, there should be other people in the house, like a maid, and a cat. Now, in Nian's room. The window opened, the curtains raised. A raven flew in from outside the night-shrouded city. The moment it landed on the floor and folded its wings, countless jet-black feathers swirled upward, transforming it into a tall, perfect woman's body. Diana Prince. Reality. Cabin on the 6th floor. Nian was still deep in his sweet dream. In front of him, crackling, sparks flew. Wanda's tiny hand grasped a golden whip constructed from mana. The whip whipped at a breakneck speed, sending bursts of sparks across the cabin floor. Leopard Girl was swiftly dodging the whip's attacks. "Don't play with her," the queen urged from behind. "All right." Leopard Girl Barbara suddenly sped up, slipping through the gaps in the golden whip, leaving a trail of afterimages as she charged towards Wanda. Wanda's face remained calm and composed, knowing that she was the only one who could protect Nian now. In this crucial moment, Wanda's hands swiftly reconstructed the sigil. Golden mana flowed through the air, swiftly forming a magical ring like a gilded shield across her palm. The Ring of Ragador. Swish. Leopard Barbara's outstretched right hand was once again blocked by the magic shield. "Don't think this thing can stop me." Leopard sneered. Her right hand suddenly transformed into a leopard claw, the tips of which seemed to be coated in a layer of silver-white metal, appearing incredibly sharp. Snap! Leopard continued to exert force, digging deeper into the magic shield. Although she hadn't yet obtained the items only available to the local king in Wakanda, she had obtained the locally produced vibranium and used it to bless her body. This made her even more resilient and her attack power increased by a significant amount. Under the force of Cheetah's vibranium claws, cracks began to appear in the magic shield. Now, Wanda, who had been silent until then, suddenly shouted. As her words fell, whoosh! The red cloth tied into a bow automatically untied from Nian's wrist. The small red cloth suddenly expanded, glowing with the crimson light of molten lava, forming a large scarlet chain that bound Cheetah's claws. What the hell is this? Cheetah's eyes widened in confusion. She struggled to twitch her hands, but found that the scarlet chain formed by the red cloth was far tighter than the magic levitation cloak. She had been careless, not treating Wanda as a real opponent, choosing to confront her head-on. And once entangled by the red cloth magic weapon, not only her, but even the Hulk would be unable to break free. "Emma, how long are you going to watch this show?" Cheetah growled. "I really thought you had it all figured out. I didn't expect." The White Queen shook her head speechlessly for a moment. "Fighting a little girl, and still asking for backup. Then I'll help you. Show you what a world-class telepath is." The White Queen stared at Wanda, her beautiful eyes suddenly gleaming white. An invisible shockwave shot outward like an arrow, piercing her mind. "Wanda, that's a psychic shockwave. Danger!" Kinluo warned in surprise. If Staro's true form were present, perhaps it could help neutralize the psychic shockwave. But with only the jellyfish fragment present, it could only perform a psychic scan, unable to attack or defend with its mind. Wanda's eyes widened, but in the next instant, her petite body was bruised as if she had been severely damaged. She collapsed unconscious onto Nian. The scarlet chains dimmed, shrinking until they reverted to ordinary red cloth. Leopard Woman looked at Wanda, who lay nearby, and said coldly, "Psychic attacks are truly unstoppable." The White Queen, with a look of pride, remained silent. "Psychic attacks are all about strength. Anyone with a lower mental strength will be killed instantly. Of course, using such a powerful mental shockwave would also cause a huge loss to the White Queen. It was originally reserved for Superman, but I didn't expect it to be used on a little girl." Chapter 280 And Crow, "Don't touch him." Nian turned on the light and walked into the room. As he pushed open the door, he was stunned to see a familiar tall figure sitting on the edge of the bed. Her sexy, slightly curly black hair cascaded down her right shoulder, framing her beautiful, delicate face with a flawless, white complexion. Below her collarbone, a fashionable, thin white gauze top cinched her slender waist, cascading down to a black, slit-like, uniform-style skirt. From the hem of the skirt, a small glimpse emerged of long, sleek legs as glossy and smooth as ivory. Due to their length, they had to be held sideways. She wore high heels, revealing her fair feet. She needed no further embellishment, her whole appearance perfectly composed from head to toe. "Auntie, what are you doing here, wearing your outside shoes?" Nian asked curiously. Diana, previously in a daze, came to her senses. She tilted her head slightly, letting her hair fall. Her gesture wasn't as dignified and graceful as usual, but it seemed more innocent and endearing than ever. Endearing? That word didn't suit my aunt. Nian's heart pounded. Or perhaps it was that he had always been vulnerable to the person before him. It was just a deeper emotion, a cherishing of her, that made him suppress himself. "Auntie, are you feeling unwell?" Nian stepped forward, first making a gesture, then gently brushing back a few strands of her hair, his palm gently resting on her smooth forehead. "It's even colder than mine." "Wait, am I running a fever?" Nian asked, his other hand resting on his own forehead, stunned. He was the one with a fever? Diana sat on the bed, a statue of a goddess, silent in response to his actions. A faint, translucent darkness shone in the center of her beautiful eyes, reflecting the figure of the young man approaching. "No, no, no." Nian muttered to himself, "How could you be sick? You're... What? Why couldn't my aunt be sick?" Nian felt a sense of disharmony again, but before he could think too much, Diana suddenly grasped his hand and slowly stood up. Diana bent slightly, leaning closer, resting her forehead against his. Nian's eyes gradually widened. He felt the warmth against his forehead, the scent of violets and the slightly warm breath that washed over him. His hands naturally rested on his waist, and through the fine fabric of his clothing, he could feel the curves of his waist, supple and free of any excess. As if mimicking his movements, Diana slowly raised her hands to support him. At this moment, Nian suddenly felt the urge to practice his lessons. Wait, tutoring? Such a familiar feeling. Reality. On the 6th floor, inside the bar, Wanda collapsed unconscious, her petite body draped in a red cloak, sitting on the floor. Her hands and head rested on Nian, who was still sleeping in the chair. I'll take Nian Prince away, and leave the other little witch to you. How about that? Leopard Barber said to the approaching White Queen. Okay. The White Queen nodded. She looked at Nian, sprawled on the table, hesitant to speak, but finally said, Don't hurt him. What? You're attracted to him too? Leopard Woman's beautiful eyes gleamed, and she asked coldly. The White Queen turned away, not meeting her gaze, and replied calmly, Didn't you say she's very important to Wonder Woman? He's more valuable alive than dead. Don't worry, I never thought of killing him. I just wanted to taste him. Leopard Woman licked her lips, feral and charming, eagerly saying, I really want to see what Diana Prince's expression will be after she's devoured her. Can she still maintain that aloof, dignified deity? Even the White Queen found this too perverse, a stark contrast between her and Leopard Woman Barbara. But it was indeed interesting, she thought. Then I'll take my prey with me. Leopard Woman reached forward, reaching out to Nian. At that moment, a powerful, roaring voice rang out from the side, Stop. Leopard Woman abruptly stopped moving, and the White Queen was also taken aback. Following the voice, she looked inside the bar. A man as burly as a bear, his eyes wide with anger, stared at Leopard Woman and the White Queen, holding an empty bottle. He was alone in a direct confrontation with Leopard Woman and the White Queen. Instructor Roth held the bottle for about 3 seconds before suddenly bending over and vomiting a large amount of alcohol with a wow sound. Don't try to hurt the child. Come at me if you have anything. After vomiting, Instructor Roth shook his head drunkenly, and stumbled towards Leopard Woman, holding the empty bottle high, ready to hide her. Before he could strike, her gorgeous diamond dress swayed, and the White Queen suddenly stepped forward and kicked Instructor Roth. Instructor Roth fell to the ground, along with the empty bottle, and tumbled out of the bar in a shambles. You're all drunk, just lie down, the White Queen said calmly. Leopard Woman glanced at the White Queen beside her, her beautiful face as cold as ever. If she had attacked him just now, he would have been chopped into pieces. Mind your own business. Leopard Woman snorted coldly, reaching out again for Nian. This time, just as her hand was about to touch Nian, a chilling feeling washed over Leopard Woman, causing the hairs on her body to stand on end, and her leopard tail automatically clenched in a beastly manner. Retreat. The White Queen screamed. Bang! Nian, more accurately, the Crimson Girl Wanda, who was lying on Nian's lap. From his body, a crimson, unknown energy suddenly swept outward. Like a crimson tide, burning and surging in the air. Everything inside the bar, from tables and chairs to windows, was shattered and obliterated by the crimson energy, sweeping over Leopard Woman and the White Queen like a shockwave. A crimson glow enveloped their figures. A second later, bang! 2 female figures were thrown backwards from the bar, slamming hard against the inner wall of the cabin corridor outside, their bodies wedged deep into the steel-reinforced interior. One of them was practically naked, her graceful form covered in leopard-like patterned fur, clad in a small silver metal vest resembling a bulletproof vest. The other female figure shone with an extremely dazzling and gorgeous radiance, like a body of art crafted from diamonds, though the surface of the diamond was fatally cracked. It hurts. What was that just now? Even vibranium could barely withstand it. Leopard Woman exclaimed in amazement. The White Queen screamed, I almost died. If I hadn't transformed into diamond in time, I would have been dead. Even in her diamond form, the White Queen felt as if she was about to break apart, her entire body falling apart. Not only was the physical damage dealt, but even her soul was deeply etched with fear. Chapter 281 Burning Wanda, Falling Nian. Both Leopard Girl and the White Queen struggled to comprehend the scene. Clearly, one person had fallen asleep, while the other had been knocked unconscious by a psychic shockwave, leaving them completely defenseless. Inside the bar, everything was purged by the crimson blast, leaving it bare. The original bar counter, tables, and chairs were gone. On the floor, Nian sat with his head drooping, still asleep. Half flying over him, Wanda, the Little Red Riding Hood, was indeed unconscious. However, at this moment, the silver necklace pendant around Wanda's neck glowed faintly crimson, and the girl's crimson hair swirled upwards. A destructive crimson energy surged from her body, blazing like flames and impacting a 10-meter radius. This crimson energy also possessed the power to destroy the mind. The White Queen's telepathic reach reached forward, and she felt a burning, throbbing pain in her head. What kind of power is that? It's incomprehensible. Barbara, the Catwoman in her vibranium vest, and the White Queen, in her diamond form, more intuitively grasped the terrifying magnitude of the crimson energy. Vibranium and diamond, when did they become so fragile? Even more astonishing for Catwoman and the White Queen was this: the crimson energy, while destroying everything, caused no harm to the boy in close proximity, merely blowing past his clothes like a gust of hot air. At this moment, Catwoman and the White Queen simultaneously recalled the girl's words, "Don't touch him." Now, what do we do? The White Queen, in her diamond form, broke free from the dented steel wall and asked gravely, "We can't get close to them, not even telepathically. That crimson energy will overwhelm everything. What's the rush?" Catwoman licked the blood from the corner of her mouth. She looked at the girl in front of her, who was constantly radiating crimson energy, and said coldly, "Energy of this intensity won't last long." "What we lack is time," said the White Queen. "I won't give up." Cheetah gritted her teeth and said coldly, "If you and I can't even handle 2 unconscious targets, then we're done." "Okay, then wait a moment." The White Queen nodded, taking the opportunity to catch her breath and repair her cracked diamond body. Like predators guarding the prey in a tree, the two of them stood outside the bar, watching the surging crimson from a distance. Meanwhile, on another cabin floor. On the 8th floor, in the public hall, no one was visible. Only a red lightning bolt and a silver streak of light could be seen, chasing, colliding, and missing each other at speeds far beyond human vision. Even the red lightning and silver streak were merely residual visual illusions left behind by their movements. As the two collided once again, Barry Allen, the Flash, reached out and pushed aside the small figure in silver armor, his eyes flashing with understanding. "No. This isn't the Speed Force. Is it inherently that fast? Incredible. If a body like this possessed the Speed Force, how much faster could it run?" The Flash's thoughts raced, and he shouted, "Who are you? Can we stop and talk? I'm tired of running all the time. I'm starving." The silver stream ignored his words and continued sprinting forward, as if to compete for speed. Inside the 7th floor cabin. As they wrestled, forward to forward. Blue chip forward against green kryptonite forward. 2 intelligent data mines, far superior to Earth's technology, collided. Invading each other. Trying to hack into each other's core database. "I'll try. Is my apocalypse technology superior, or is yours?" Cyborg growled, as if he were the villain. In the 5th floor cabin. Tick-tick. Blood flowed from the katana, staining the glossy floor red. The man in the red leather jacket struggled, his eyes widening, his body twitching violently, and he fell limply onto the red and black armor in front of him. He remained motionless, as if dead. Deathstroke raised his hand to push the man's face away from his breastplate, pushing him to the ground. Drawing his bloody katana, he stepped over the body and was about to leave. He had just taken a step when he felt resistance at his right ankle. Deathstroke looked back to see Deadpool, who had long since died, sprawled in a pool of blood, reaching out to grab his right ankle. "You used to call me your servant, but now you just come up and slash me without even saying hello. How heartless, cousin," Deadpool resentfully said. Deathstroke said nothing, this time swinging his sword towards the man's head. Clang. The sound of metal clashing echoed. Deadpool remained sprawled on the bloodied floor of the cabin. However, he quickly drew his katana from his back, barely blocking Deathstroke's blow with his blindness. "Not bad, huh?" Deadpool exclaimed triumphantly. Puff. The next second, Deathstroke's other katana pinned Deadpool's head to the floor. Inside the first cabin, a silver mechanical arm collided heavily with a pentagram-shaped round shield. Captain America, Steve Rogers, holding his shield in one hand, raised his head and shouted to the man dressed as an agent in front of him, "Bucky, don't you remember me? I'm Steve. We were once comrades who shared life and death together. A moment of confusion flashed across the disheveled Winter Soldier's eyes, then quickly returned to a blank expression. He suddenly punched Captain America in the face with his right hand. Captain America gritted his teeth and continued, "Remember that Winter." Bang! The Winter Soldier punched again. Captain America's face was red and swollen purple. He gritted his teeth and said, "You fell off the train. I thought I'd never see you again." Pa. 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 The Winter Soldier's punches continued. Blood trickled from the corner of Captain America's mouth, and he grinned. "You know, I could keep fighting like this all day." The Winter Soldier raised his fist again, but this time, he hesitated to swing. A battle was taking place on every level of the ship, an extraordinary battle. Elsewhere, in a room, the lights were out. In the night, two figures, large and small, almost overlapped. Nian embraced the perfect being before him, his left hand pressed against her silky, sexy black hair, pressing against the back of her head to prevent her delicate head from escaping, savoring her allure and tenderness. This was another kind of battle. Sinking. Nian wanted to sink like this, even if it meant falling straight into the abyss of hell. Chapter 282 The Extraordinary People on the Ship. On the Grand Era cruise ship, inside the third deck, a silver trident fell to the floor with a clang. A man with short hair, clad in black leather armor, floated low in the sky. His stern face etched with agony, his body struggling violently from dehydration and oxygenation. No matter how tightly he clamped his mouth and nose, the moisture still trickled out bit by bit. His skin shriveled rapidly, his face paled. Finally, he lost consciousness, his head drooping, his body slumping to the cabin floor like a salted fish on land. Directly in front of the fallen man, a slender, white hand opened slightly, allowing the extracted water to float on its palm. A red-haired woman waved to the side, and a ball of water instantly landed in the ornamental fish pond to the side of the cafe. "Namor, you have violated the Undersea Empire's Treaty of Non-Invasion of Land. You are now officially under arrest. The enforcer is Mera, Lord of the Seven Undersea Kingdoms." The red-haired woman whispered softly, a powerful and noble aura rising from her graceful form. Since acquiring the trident, Mera felt as if her bloodline had awakened, her water control abilities becoming increasingly refined. Water control is the nemesis of the Undersea people, so this time, when hunting down Namor, the powerful son of the former Queen of Atlantis, Mera chose to take matters into her own hands. Mera, amazing. Susan, not far behind, opened her alluring lips in amazement. Then, boom. From a corner outside the cabin cafe, a crimson laser suddenly appeared, causing the temperature in the cabin to soar. It blasted towards Mera, who stood in front of Namor. "Mera, look out!" Susan cried out in shock. With incredible reaction speed, she rushed to Mera's side, arms outstretched, as if to shield the blazing crimson laser with her body. "Susan." Mera's beautiful face changed, but then froze in shock. The crimson laser, which had been approaching her, stopped in front of Susan. It didn't stop, it was blocked. Blocked by an invisible energy barrier. Susan gritted her teeth, raised her hands forward, and maintained a posture of exerting force. The crimson laser slammed into the invisible energy barrier, and streams of red light dissipated along the barrier until the crimson lasers completely vanished. Susan breathed a sigh of relief, a bead of sweat trickling down her delicate face. Mera raised her finger, and the bead of sweat instantly stopped in midair, preventing it from falling to the ground. Mera snapped her finger, and the bead of sweat instantly flew out of the cafe like a bullet, ricocheting in the direction of the crimson lasers. Around the corner outside the cafe, a painful groan and a crackling sound echoed. A hostile man, clad in the high-tech armor of the Dark Undersea Empire, clutched his chest, using the armor's engine to accelerate, and fled the scene like an underwater bat. "It's him." Mera's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she recognized him instantly. It was clearly the pirate who had once traded with Prince Orm. Black Manta. "Susan, are you okay?" Mera took her time to assess Susan's condition. "It's okay, just a little strain." Susan waved her hand nonchalantly. "I didn't expect you to be a transcendent," Mera exclaimed in surprise. "Aren't you one too?" Susan smiled. Mera nodded slightly, then shook her head. "Sorry, I didn't tell you earlier that I'm from the Undersea Empire." "Undersea Empire?" This. Susan was about to say something, surprised. But then, the Grand Era cruise ship trembled violently. Although the Grand Era had always been shaking, this time, Mara and Susan felt their hearts shaken by a crimson tide like fireflies. The crimson tide came from above, seemingly from the 6th floor. Meanwhile, inside the 5th floor cabin, Iron Man and Batman flew up, one on the left and one on the right. With a crisp sound, they collided like bumper balls, the red and the black, inseparable like magnets. Iron Man started the engines, dragging Batman along with him as he said solemnly, "Let me be clear, I only like women, well, pretty women. Shut up. Listen to me, I can handle her." Batman placed his hands on Iron Man's head and chest, trying to push him away. A dozen meters away, the green-haired girl's hands and body glowed with a faint green fluorescence, dominating the magnetic field of the entire cabin area. Lorna wanted to continue pressuring them, not giving the two a chance to fight back. Just then, a crimson energy wave from above shook her mind. "Little brother, sister," Lorna muttered to herself, her pale green eyes regaining some clarity. She ignored the two and turned away. Inside the 10th floor cabin, Supergirl and Spider-Woman stood side by side, facing off against a witch cloaked in a gray-black cloak, her skin as pale as death. Supergirl Kara had naturally tried to attack her. After all, Kryptonians on Earth aren't afraid of a fight. But the enemy possesses the ability to teleport. Every time they attack, they teleport to another part of the ship. Add to that their strange sorcery and psychic attacks, and they're a formidable opponent. However, she's not alone. Kara and Gwen exchanged a glance, their coordination growing stronger. With a single glance, they could understand each other's intentions. Better coordination next time, they'll be able to defeat them. Although this was their first time joining forces, both Supergirl and Spider-Woman were confident. Just as Supergirl was about to take the lead, she suddenly stiffened, and together with Spider-Woman, she glanced down at the deck they were standing on. This subtle yet familiar feeling coming from the hold below was. Inside the 6th deck. "Harley, I'm so hungry." The 2-meter-tall, shark-like being patted its whitened belly like a drum, its sharp, serrated teeth grinding back and forth like the serrations of a drum. A pretty girl with twin pigtails and heavy clown makeup, traveling with it, responded, "Didn't you eat at the banquet just now? But I'm just hungry." "Hold on a bit. Nanoi, we can eat once we find Superman. He's too tough to eat. I didn't ask you to eat him." Harley Quinn, accompanied by Shark King Nanoi, explored the area. She had no interest in fighting other superhumans, she had been invited aboard hoping to find Superman. "You marked me, do you think I'm a pet? I must find that bastard." Harley Quinn couldn't tell what emotion was swirling within her. She was simply furious. Furious. "I must find him and get to the bottom of it." Harley Quinn began to grind her teeth. Then, boom. From the other end of the 6th deck, a crimson wave of energy spread through the air, like a burning flame reaching all the way here. "It's so hot, so hot." Nanoi stuck out her tongue. "What's going on up there?" Harley Quinn's eyes widened in confusion. "My eyes are not feeling well, so I guess there will only be one chapter today." Chapter 283 Death is Coming, The Extraordinary Retreats. At this moment, on the 6th deck, in the bar, Leopard Woman, clad in a vibranium vest and transformed into a human-like female leopard, and the White Queen, dressed in a long dress and transformed into diamond-like form, stood at the door, stunned. From inside the bar, waves of crimson energy surged out like a tidal wave, showing no sign of stopping. "Damn it, why won't she stop? Where does that little girl get such immense energy?" Leopard Woman gritted her teeth clenched in hatred. She'd already taken off all her clothes. She's wearing all these strange things, that self-protecting cloak, the red chains that bound you. The White Queen said helplessly, "Why don't you give up?" "No, the prey is right in front of us, how can we give up?" Leopard Woman trembled with rage. If she gave up, she'd probably remember it for 10 years. She'd even wake up every night thinking about today's defeat. "But if this crimson energy tide doesn't stop, we can't even get close," the White Queen sighed. "Even a body made of vibranium and diamond can't withstand it continuously. Who dares to go in? Whoever enters will die." Just then, she was thinking this. Leopard Woman and the White Queen's eyes suddenly fixed, their gaze fixed on a spot within the bar. There, besides the already occupied master and servant, Zinnian and Wanda, another figure suddenly appeared. A graceful and voluptuous female figure. Facing the doorway, their features were obscured. She wore a black cape, a mass of voluptuous black hair, and was dressed entirely in black. Her upper body was a sparsely layered gauze veil, revealing her graceful shoulders and slender waist. Her lower body was even less covered, with only a black sash dangling from the waistband, revealing two long, alluring legs. Leopard Woman and the White Queen were shocked. Neither her animal instincts nor her telepathy registered the other's presence. Furthermore, the black-clad woman, ignoring the crimson tide that permeated the cabin bar, slowly approached Wanda and the sleeping Nian, the source of the energy. Who is she? Panther Woman, shocked, glanced quickly at the White Queen. The White Queen, equally shocked, replied, I don't know. I've never seen her. She's not one of us. The woman in black, ignoring the crimson energy surge, approached the girl and boy standing side by side. A smile crept across her face, seemingly obscured by a veil of black mist. Finally, I found you. Has it lost control? The woman in black glanced at the crimson girl beside her. It was obvious. The crimson girl's face was slightly pale. Not only was the silver necklace pendant around her neck gleaming crimson, but her petite body was also tinged with a faint crimson glow. It's not time to awaken yet. The woman in black raised her fair left hand and extended a finger. An ominous black mist surged and rolled softly. The crimson glow of the silver necklace pendant dimmed. The crimson girl's hair, always vibrant crimson, dimmed as well. Even her usually vibrant crimson hair had a slightly grayish hue, and her face was as pale as if she had been seriously ill. The crimson energy surge within the bar ceased. Outside, the White Queen instinctively took a step back, overcome with fear. Beside her, Leopard Woman gritted her teeth, clenched her fists, and took a step forward. Barbara. The White Queen tried to stop her. That's my prey. My prey. Leopard Woman unwillingly took another step forward, her eyes flashing with a frenzied, feral glint as she shouted at the woman in black. Like a female leopard protecting her food. A rational woman, faced with such a situation, would have given up long ago. But she was Leopard Woman. A feral Leopard Woman. Your prey. Faced with Leopard Woman's protest, the woman in black paused and slowly turned around. For a moment, Leopard Woman and the White Queen's eyes froze. It was a face of utterly captivating perfection. Even the two, who considered themselves beauties, found it breathtakingly beautiful. For such a beautiful, captivating, and perfect being, they would willingly die. Their hearts stopped, as if they had witnessed death. Horizontal ellipsis. No. This is wrong. The White Queen withdrew from her diamond body, blood oozing from the corner of her mouth. She had actually used a mental attack on her own mind. Meanwhile, Leopard Woman, still gazing at her face, was lost in thought. Barbara. The White Queen telepathically called out Leopard Woman's name. Leopard Woman shuddered, her claws sinking into her palms, blood dripping onto the floor. The intense pain bought her a moment of lucidity. Despite this, both closed their eyes, afraid to look at each other's faces, and stepped back until their backs collided with a wall. But the other's face remained seared into their minds, unforgettable. A faint aura of death lingered over them. Death approached, the extraordinary retreated. Horizontal ellipsis. He belongs exclusively to death. The woman in black ignored Leopard Woman and the White Queen, her gaze returning to the still sleeping Nian. Die soon, die soon. My love, I have waited for you for so long, so long. Even her voice was so mournful and beautiful, it moved people to tears. The woman in black crouched slightly, her palm touching the boy's face. Ignoring the steel body, the area of Nian's face that was touched turned a pale gray. Yes, that's it, my dear child. We will be together forever. No one can separate us. A smile crept into the woman's hazy face, and she gently caressed his face. The boy's lips paled as her hand slid from his chin to his neck. Snap. Without warning, a hand suddenly grasped her wrist. On that hand, a silver bracelet gleamed with divine light. What are you doing? An angry voice echoed from within the bar. Outside, hearing this familiar voice, the DNA within the Leopard Woman stirred again. You're finally here. Leopard Woman. Barbara breathed a sigh of relief. One of Leopard Woman's hunting rules: if she can't get her prey today, she won't let anyone else take it away. The woman in black raised her eyes. Her sexy black hair flew wildly. A silver crown gleamed with honor upon her forehead, beneath a face as exquisitely carved as a sculpture. Clad in a wild and imposing short armor and skirt, her muscular curves, devoid of a trace of excess flesh, emerged. A dark-haired woman suddenly appeared, carrying an ancient shield on her back, a silver sword in her left hand, and her right gripping the black-clad woman's wrist with a firm grasp. Behind her, another woman, dressed like a magician, appeared. Oh? A descendant of the earth gods. The black-clad woman's expression remained unchanged, a faint smile breaking through. You can live almost forever. Do you want to die now? Don't touch him. Diana said coldly, meeting her gaze fearlessly and forcing her hand away. Simultaneously, Diana's right hand, gripping the woman's wrist, quickly turned a pale gray, a golden divine light surging from her body, washing over her with resistance. Swoosh! The Vulcan sword swung, slicing towards the woman's head. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Superman takes action and the ship sinks. Inside the fifth-floor cabin, the sounds of fierce fighting ceased. The cabin floor was stained red with the blood of 3 men, streaked with sword marks and bullet holes. In the only spot unstained, Deadpool and Deathstroke sat cross-legged on the floor, facing each other, 2 katanas resting on their knees. Deadpool peeled off his cowl, revealing a face riddled with pits and horribly disfigured, though seemingly younger than Deathstroke. Deathstroke's temples were gray, his stern face a weathered expression, and he wore a patch over his right eye. That's right, cousin. We're all just workers. There's no need to engage in reckless fighting, Deadpool shrugged. I didn't expect you to join the Avengers. You don't really want to be a hero, do you? Deathstroke stared blankly at him with his left eye, the blade of his katana still dripping with blood. No way, Deadpool casually spread his hands. They paid a lot. And, superheroes are awesome. With a clang and a bang, the passengers on the 5th floor retreated to their suites. In the empty public areas, expensive tables, chairs, ornaments, lamps, and artwork, everything was tossed to the floor, leaving the cabin in a state of complete chaos. The Grand Era, previously remarkably stable despite the harsh winds and waves, now rocked and vibrated like a paper boat. The shaking and trembling intensified, creating the illusion of imminent collapse. It looks like there's a major problem both above and below the ship. Deathstroke looked up, then down, glancing at the ceiling and deck of the 5th floor. Let's just stay here. It's fine. It would be even better with a couple of model girls. Deadpool chuckled, appearing relaxed, but his eyes remained fixed on Deathstroke. Deathstroke remained silent, sitting with Deadpool on the tilting, sometimes tossing deck. Horizontal ellipsis. On the other side of the 5th deck, Iron Man and Batman had intended to catch up with a green-haired girl and head to the 6th deck, when a low growl rang out from the deck below. No, 2 growls combined. It was definitely not the cry of a human or beast. Through the cabin, it was deafening, echoing faintly with the trembling of his iron armor. Witch doctor from your league. Batman, wearing a bat mask as black as the night, revealing only his deep eyes, mouth, and jaw, glanced at Iron Man beside him. That's him, for sure. Iron Man nodded. Boom. With a thunderous rumble from below, the entire Grand Era shook. The noise must have pierced the ship. Normal operation, Iron Man said, a little embarrassed. The previous aircraft carrier almost lost a plane. We can't let him continue like this. This ship has tens of thousands of people on it, Batman said solemnly. Okay. Iron Man felt like he was back to a familiar routine with the Avengers. Subdue the Hulk. Meanwhile, on the 4th deck, the damage to the public areas here was more severe than on any other deck. Countless steel-reinforced interior walls had been pierced, leaving terrifying gaping holes over 2 meters long and wide. The deck was pockmarked like Deadpool's face. The passengers on this deck had already evacuated to the upper and lower decks. And then, on an inner deck on the 4th deck, the sound of the 2 roars echoed faintly, but there was no sign of the opposing forces. A huge hole remained in the floor, leading directly to the floor below. Inside the 3rd deck, a giant green monster, brimming with rage, grappled with a similarly sized, entirely red monster. They thundered down from the 4th deck, crashing into the double room on the 3rd, scaring a couple half to death as they huddled in bed. Boom. Their every move carried a terrifying force of destruction, shattering the steel walls and decks like paper. The green and red monsters grappled fiercely, quickly punching through the 3rd deck again and continuing their descent to the lower decks. Their sheer physical prowess was already at the first level of transcendence, and as they grappled, they showed no regard for the passengers, as others would. Boom. Boom. The reinforced decks of the Grand Era cruise ship were pierced one after another. Meanwhile, inside the first deck, vibranium round shields clashed against metal arms. Captain America and the Winter Soldier faced each other. At Captain America's words, the Winter Soldier's eyes gleamed beneath his disheveled hair, and he hesitated to bring his fist down. "Bucky, you remember?" "Right," Captain America exclaimed, despite his injuries. Just then, with a bang, the Hulk and the Red Hulk, grappling with each other, crashed down from the upper deck like a meteorite, crashing onto the deck beside them. "Banner. Who's the other one?" Captain America looked at the twin giants in shock. The Winter Soldier seized the opportunity and delivered a powerful kick, sending Captain America flying several meters before turning away without a backward glance. "Bucky." Captain America hurriedly scrambled to his feet, watching the Winter Soldier disappear around the corner. Gritting his teeth, he chose not to pursue, instead charging towards the Hulk and the Red Hulk. If the two continued their clash, the ship would be completely pierced. However, Captain America, who had just charged towards the battleground with his round shield, was swiftly sent flying backwards the next second. His vibranium round shield nearly slipped from his grasp, and his back slammed into the inner wall more than 10 meters away. "Anyone? We need backup here on the first floor." Captain America exhaled, his voice gravely rasping. "Coming, coming." A crimson metallic figure, trailing flames, swiftly flew in from outside the first deck. Behind him, a dark figure, one-handed, wielding the Batcable claws. "One for each of us," Iron Man offered, watching the two giants tussling frantically, wreaking havoc in the cabin. "No problem." Batman's combat boots landed on the first deck. "Banner, time for bed." Iron Man flew forward, unleashing a blast from his palm engine, striking the Hulk on his back. The Hulk, who was rubbing the red giant against the deck, suddenly raised his eyes, gazing angrily at the floating Iron Man. Assaulting a teammate? The Hulk abandoned the Red Hulk, who was pinned to the deck, and suddenly rose to his feet, charging furiously at Iron Man. "Big man, I was wrong," Iron Man said as he suddenly accelerated. Flames erupted from his nanosuit, leading the Hulk toward the Grand Era's window. Ling. The batarang struck the crouching Red Hulk, dealing minimal damage but a powerful insult. Batman then unleashed a grappling hook from his bat grappling hook, attempting to lure the Red Hulk to the other side of the Grand Era. Unexpectedly, the Red Hulk rose, gave Batman a cold glance, then suddenly accelerated, chasing the lured Hulk. Batman quickly realized, this guy, unlike the Hulk, has a normal mind. Outside the Grand Era, naturally, lay the vast ocean under the night sky. Whoosh! A red metallic figure flew out, accelerating high into the night sky. Then, accompanied by a low roar, the Hulk chased after him, bursting out of the cabin with astonishing leaps, leaping high towards the soaring Iron Man. In a critical moment, his red cape fluttering as he narrowly avoided Iron Man. Facing the enraged Hulk, the towering being raised his hand and delivered a punch. With a gust of wind and a burst of air, the Hulk slammed into the sea like a meteorite, like a depth charge, sending the water splattering dozens of meters high. Roar! The Red Hulk followed suit, leaping out of the cabin. The towering being delivered another punch. Instantly, the Red Hulk was hurled like a streak of light into the distant sea. "Goodness!" Iron Man exclaimed. "What's the situation inside?" Superman, standing above the sea like a god, braving the night wind, asked the stationary Iron Man. Because the Grand Era's decks and interior walls were filled with lead, even X-rays couldn't see what was going on inside. He could only rely on hearing. Superman knew that fighting was going on every floor, but now, for unknown reasons, the crew were converging on the 6th floor. "It's not bad, but it's not great either. We have to stop the cruise ship and return to port," Iron Man responded quickly. "I'll try," Superman nodded. "Try what?" Iron Man assumed Superman didn't know that the cruise ship's intelligent protection system was too advanced to penetrate in a short time. Superman didn't reply, but flew directly to the bottom of the super-large cruise ship. Iron Man soon understood what Superman wanted to try. He wanted to try to carry the ship back. Inside the first cabin. "Hello." Captain America stood up, holding the wall with a vibranium shield in hand, and greeted Batman who was approaching. "Are you okay?" Batman nodded and asked politely. "It's okay, I can still fight. Captain America wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and grinned. He took a few steps forward and suddenly found that the deck next to him had ended. It turned out that the fight between the Hulk and the Red Hulk had penetrated the deck of the first cabin. What is this? Captain America walked to the edge of the hole in the deck and stared down, stunned. His eyes reflected the faint green glow of the cruise ship's hold. Batman quickly stepped forward, reaching Captain America's shoulder. His deep eyes peered down, and he instantly recognized what was hidden in the hold. After all, he knew it all too well. It was kryptonite. He still had a small piece of it in his Batcave. But within the hold, a whole tank of glowing green kryptonite. Batman momentarily wondered if he'd seen it wrong. This green crystal is expanding. Captain America exclaimed in astonishment. Batman took another look and realized it, too. The kryptonite wasn't just a pile of fragments, but rather a single, unified mass, forming a mountain of kryptonite crystals. And this mountain, hidden in the hold of the massive luxury cruise ship, was constantly expanding. The hard, sharp outer layer of kryptonite was constantly pushing the inner walls of the hold apart. It's broken. The thought flashed through both Batman and Captain America's minds simultaneously. The cruise ship is about to sink. Chapter 285, The Gathering of Extraordinary People of the Opposite Sex. On the Grand Era, in a hidden cabin somewhere, Lex Luthor slumped on a leather sofa, eyes closed and face tilted upwards towards the ceiling. He was alone. But suddenly, a cold voice echoed, "Your plan has reached its final stage." As expected, Lex Luthor said softly, eyes closed. "You will fail," the cold voice continued. "It's not over yet, who knows whether it will succeed or fail." Lex Luthor's expression remained unchanged. The cold voice continued, emotionless, "Then we'll see. But I've already said, if you fail, I want your brain." Inside the sixth-floor cabin, in the bar, the sword of Vulcan suddenly stopped in midair. Beneath the molecular severing blade, a fair hand grasped the blade with its fingertips. Not a bad sword. The woman in black held a sword of Vulcan between the fingers of her right hand, looking at the mirror-like surface, its cold blade reflecting her own face. Diana's sword strike was so easily blocked. Cheetah, watching from a distance, was stunned. However, Wonder Woman Diana's face remained as stoic as the sword itself, unwavering. The moment the Vulcan sword strike was blocked, her left hand instantly released the hilt of the sword and reached down to grasp the sword at her waist, drawing it and striking the opponent's waist once more. Switching swords and striking again, with impeccable fluidity, as if practiced thousands of times. A flicker of approval flashed in the eyes of the woman in black, and she suddenly broke free from Wonder Woman's grip, flinging her sword and body alike. Wonder Woman indeed flew away. But the sword strike continued. Her sword slash unleashed a dazzling rainbow beam. The rainbow beam enveloped the woman in black, carrying her upward, oblivious to the cabin ceiling. A brilliant rainbow beam of light instantly pierced the boundless night sky above the Grand Era, sweeping into the depths of the universe. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman, wielding the golden sword, slammed heavily against the bar's inner wall, denting the thickened steel plate into a human-shaped dent. Rainbow? What was that just now? The White Queen, watching from outside, was puzzled. She's gotten stronger too. Cheetah clenched her fists and said gravely. He's been attacked by the Ravens, and it's serious. Zatanna, who had appeared in the cabin bar with Wonder Woman, sized up the comatose boy and asked, "Can you wake him up?" Wonder Woman broke free from the inner wall, looking at the boy with concern, and asked quickly. "I can't say for sure. He's too deeply lost in Raven's dream." Zatanna frowned. "I'll try my best. Please." Wonder Woman exhaled and looked down at her right hand. The hand that had gripped the black-clad woman's wrist was now covered in a faint black mist, too weak to form a fist. And this aura of death was creeping up her arm. Buzz! The bracelet on Wonder Woman's right wrist, the silver bracelet of protection, blazed brightly, barely suppressing the spread of the deathly aura. But then, a chill ran down the spines of everyone inside and outside the bar. A dark shadow appeared in front of Nian, transforming from intangible to real. Wonder Woman's face was grave, and she clenched the golden sword in her left hand. The reappearing woman in black gazed at Wonder Woman and the sword in her hand, smiling faintly. "A sword crafted from Asgard. You know you can't defeat me, so you want to teleport me to another region of the universe. You're so decisive, even abandoning your own weapon." The woman in black casually tossed the Vulcan sword to the ground. "Get out of here. Zatanna shouted at the woman in black. At her words, the woman in black took a half step back, then stopped. Disbelief crossed Zatanna's beautiful eyes. I'm a little surprised to hear the inverted language here, the woman in black said softly, still unconvinced. You all want death. Unfortunately, today I only want him. The woman in black reached out, her fingers touching the sleeping boy's brow. Stop. Don't touch him. Two melodious yet cold female voices echoed from outside the bar. Mara and Susan, who had just arrived at the scene, attacked simultaneously, their bullet-like drops of water and mental power blasting towards the black-haired woman. Buzz! A black mist surged from the woman in black, blocking the water droplets and mental thoughts. Mara and Susan stepped forward simultaneously, rushing into the bar, their eyes fixed on the sleeping boy. The woman in black turned and exclaimed in surprise, the royal descendants of the Atlantean civilization, and the awakened ones baptized by the mysteries of the universe. Bang! The bar's ceiling suddenly shattered. This time, the woman in black took a step back. A female figure draped in a red cape descended from above, standing in front of the boy. A petite figure in a tight black and white spider suit landed behind him. He's not yours. Supergirl Kara clenched her fists, speaking in unison with Spider-Woman Gwen behind her. Kryptonians, and mutants from Earth. The woman in black's eyes grew more and more surprised. A sizzle. The lights in the bar's upper cabin dimmed. A being somewhere between a witch and a ghost peered through the hole in the ceiling at the woman in black and the black-haired boy. It was the enchantress who had chased Supergirl and Spider-Woman. Her dead gaze finally fell on the young man. An inexplicable wave of emotion flickered in the enchantress's eyes. She recognized him. She had met Nian in the Gotham bar before. No, not her. It was John Moon who recognized him. A flash of clarity crossed the enchantress's indifferent eyes, and then several lights in the sixth-floor bar dimmed. People from other dimensions, trying to get involved. The woman in black laughed. If you're going to get involved, please count me in. Leopard woman, standing outside the door, was immediately dissatisfied. She displayed her sharp cheetah claws, her tail lashing out, and she stepped into the bar. The White Queen gritted her teeth and followed Leopard woman. Suddenly, a green-haired girl stepped between them, entering the bar first with an aura that belied her youth. I'm protecting him, Lorna said coldly. Outside the bar, at the corner of the cabin. It's here. The boss is sent. The shark-like, burly being twitched its nose, its adorable little eyes darting towards the bar. Really? The twin-tailed girl quickly quickened her pace without hesitation. She stepped inside, only to discover it was already filled with extraordinary beings of the opposite sex. Wonder Woman, Zatanna, Supergirl, Spider-Woman, Invisible Woman, Poseidon, Cheetah, the White Queen, Enchantress, Polaris, Wanda. Chapter 286 Kill Superman and Fire. Outside the Grand Era cruise ship, Superman, clad in a red cape and a blue Kryptonian suit, plummeted at high speed, plunging into the water with a cascading splash. Iron Man also descended, searching for the Hulk, whom Superman had just sent tumbling into the sea. Beneath the surface, Superman, hands clenched into fists, darted effortlessly through the murky waters. He reached the very center of the Grand Era cruise ship, pressing his open hands against the outer metal coating. Superman's force field naturally enveloped the lower end of the ship like a layer of energy. Without Superman's force field, he would have shattered the ship's outer layer. However, before he could exert his force, a sudden cracking sound echoed from all over the Grand Era cruise ship's cabin floor. Superman's eyes widened in shock, seeing horrifying cracks bursting across the ship's hull. From the cracks, beams of blinding green light emanated, illuminating half the ocean below. Is this kryptonite? Superman's body instinctively felt a surge of discomfort from the mere presence of the kryptonite. Crackling. The steel-reinforced hull of the cruise ship's bottom bulged open, revealing the tip of a massive green crystal iceberg within. It was a massive mountain of kryptonite, still expanding and growing. The instant the ship's bottom was breached, seawater surged back, and the entire cruise ship, along with a mountain of kryptonite in its hold, roared down to the dark seabed, crushing Superman, who was already at the bottom of the ship, with it. The ship was sinking. Buzz. The Grand Era suddenly sank over 30 meters into the ocean. A massive whirlpool formed in the water around it, and boundless seawater poured onto the first deck first. For a moment, the crew and passengers still on the first deck screamed, "Get out, get to the upper deck." The flooding water was already waist deep. Captain America kept opening doors and directing the passengers on the first floor to evacuate. It's too late. The ship is sinking too fast. Batman, also in the first floor cabin, looked around and quickly whispered, "Alfred, send the Batplane over." As soon as he finished speaking, gurgling, the influx of water completely submerged the first floor. In less than 3 seconds, it flooded the second and third floors. In this life-or-death crisis, gurgling, the water that had flooded the cabins suddenly rushed out. Passengers who had nearly drowned gasped for air, clinging to the cabin pillars and railings to prevent being swept off the deck. It wasn't the water that was draining away. Batman, drenched, looked out onto the deck and quickly realized something. The Grand Era cruise ship was rising, resurfacing above the surface. "Clark," Batman muttered. At this moment, the Grand Era slowly rose from the ocean, the waves surging. The kryptonite mountain, piercing the ship's bottom and jutting out, now replaced the lower deck, almost becoming one with the Grand Era, rising and falling like a single entity. At this moment, as the ship emerged from the sea, a tiny figure, no bigger than a bean, emerged from the ship's underside compared to the massive ship, far larger than an aircraft carrier. In the pitch black, cold night, the man, like the sun, lifted the base of the kryptonite mountain with both hands and soared out of the sea. Superman gritted his teeth, a look of pain and paleness etched across his resolute face. The sharp, shimmering green kryptonite pierced deeply into his palms, and crimson blood flowed down his muscular arms. In the past, facing the kryptonite, Superman would have lost his superpowers long ago. But now, as if awakened, he forcibly held on. Because Superman knew he couldn't let go. If they let go, all the passengers on board would be doomed. On the 7th floor, Cyborg and Black Vision were locked in a fistfight, forward to forward, for who knows how long. Then, with a bang, the two, who had been wrestling with strength, firing technological cannons, and invading with intelligent data, retreated one after another. Electricity flickered from their bodies as they collapsed against the inner walls of the cabin behind them. It was a draw. Cyborg struggled to get up. His brain was already overloaded, and he couldn't move for a while. But during the intelligent data invasion just now, Cyborg had obtained a very important piece of information from Black Vision's intelligent database. "Bruce, are you there?" Cyborg opened the team channel. "How's the situation over there?" Batman, hearing Cyborg's call, asked quickly in the first floor cabin. "I'm fine," Cyborg said solemnly. "Bruce, quickly check on Superman. This robot called Division, who's fighting me, was built specifically to kill Superman. It's fair to say that their ultimate goal, from the very beginning, in luring us aboard, was to kill Superman. They wanted to kill the resurrected Superman right before our eyes." As expected, Batman's eyes flashed coldly. From the very beginning, the lead layer added to the cruise ship's hull and interior walls to limit Superman's clairvoyance was designed to conceal the kryptonite crystals in the lower hold. Everything connected. Cyborg stared at the limp Black Vision before him, then quickly said, "They've built more than one robot called Division. There's a second one." "What?" Batman's pupils shrank. This was truly unexpected. At this moment, enduring the kryptonite's attack and weakening like an awakened being, Superman, with all his might, lifted the kryptonite mountain with his hands, carrying the Grand Era cruise ship into the air. Whoosh! A white shadow flashed, flew beneath the massive cruise ship, and hovered directly in front of Superman. Superman's vision was a mechanical figure identical to Black Vision's, its entire vibranium body coated in white, and its forehead also adorned with a faint green kryptonite browband. White Vision's emotionless electronic eyes scanned Superman, confirming he was the target. He swiftly raised his right hand, and a kryptonite-tipped spear materialized in his palm. Superman, even lifting a mountain of kryptonite required an incredible amount of willpower, let alone using his heat vision. Even lifting his feet was difficult. If he let go, the Grand Era would plummet to the bottom of the ocean. Superman could only watch helplessly as the opponent swung the kryptonite spear toward his chest. In the nick of time, snap! A red iron hand reached out from the side and grasped the kryptonite spear firmly. White Vision glanced sideways. Iron Man hovered beside Superman, holding the unconscious Dr. Banner in one hand and firmly grasping the spearhead with the other. "That's the guy who created you, the one who hacked into the database at Avengers headquarters, right?" Iron Man's metal eye sockets glowed white, and the nano-cannon behind him quickly assembled, charging up energy and aiming it at White Vision. "Jarvis, Fire. Chapter 287, Resurrected Nian, about to die. In a familiar room, a passionate embrace and kiss. Nian and the perfect dark-haired woman fell together. With a hint of greed and decadence, he leaned down along the delicate collarbone of her neck, savoring the violet-scented tenderness. Sinking down. Even if it was hell, it wouldn't matter, right? The dark-haired woman's eyes were hazy, her divine body shimmering with a faint pink. She didn't stop the boy's excessive movements, even hoping for more intense ones. But then, a large hand suddenly and forcefully grasped her slender, perfect neck, like a work of art. The dark-haired woman, lying on the bed, opened her beautiful eyes in confusion and met Nian's eyes, filled with restraint and disgust. Why disgust? Wasn't this what she dreamed of and longed for most in her heart? The dark-haired woman couldn't understand. Who are you? Nian asked angrily. Why are you dressed as my aunt? Didn't you ask me to change? The dark-haired woman, a little aggrieved, asked softly, how did you recognize her? I look exactly like her. Because you're not my aunt. Nian's eyes cleared. There was no particular reason. Simply because you weren't Diana's aunt. So, no matter how much you resembled her, even if everything matched his understanding of her, you weren't my aunt, so Nian could recognize her. But to assume her likeness to please him only filled Nian with rage, a rage powerful enough to ignite his stable dreams. Because you're not my aunt. Such a simple statement instantly broke the dark-haired woman's defenses. She couldn't understand, yet it was filled with deep jealousy. She was jealous of Diana. Yam. The dark-haired woman beneath Nian suddenly dissipated, transforming into several ravens, flying away like a phantom. So, this was all a dream. Nian muttered to himself, gazing at the black raven feathers that landed on his palm. As he realized this, the familiar scene in the room began to blur and dissipate. He was about to wake from his dream. Nian realized this very clearly. In the bar on the 6th deck, Wonder Woman Diana, wielding a golden sword and a frowning brow, Zatanna, in magician attire and wielding a magic wand, Supergirl Kara, with her dazzling blonde hair and flowing red cape, Spider-Woman Gwen, in her black and white hooded tights, Invisible Woman Susan, dressed like a cross between a model and a secretary, Poseidon Mara, with her waist-length red hair, Cheetah, clad in a vibranium vest and transformed into a beast, the White Queen, her body aglow with diamonds, Enchantress, like a formless ghost in a darkened area, Lorna, young yet powerful, North Star. Finally, King Shark Nunavie and Harley Quinn, who had finally stepped into their inner world. Not counting the unconscious Scarlet Maid Wanda. With a sleeping Nian at the center, the place was practically packed. You all want to fight me? The woman in black, emitting an ominous aura, said with a faint smile. In response, Wonder Woman raised her golden sword and threatened to strike. Zatanna's lips parted as she muttered inverted language. Supergirl raised her clenched fist high, and Spider-Woman twisted her wrist to fire her special spider silk. Susan closed her eyes, opened her hands, and activated a force field. Mara's fingers grasped, and the drinks in the bar began to circulate. Cheetah extended her vibranium claws, gleaming with a cold light, and the White Queen focused her telepathic attack. Enchantress's lifeless eyes dimmed, and Lorna's small hands glowed green. Every metalwork in the bar, even the Vulcan sword on the ground, vibrated. Although Nanari and Harley Quinn were unaware of the situation, they could sense the immense power of the woman in black. The former gritted his teeth, as usual, while the latter reached for the gun on his hip. Just as the battle was about to break out, a calm voice suddenly echoed in the bar. Stop. Every transcendent in the bar froze, their eyes fixed on the young man sitting on the ground, their eyes suddenly clear and bright. The moment Nian awoke, he knew everything that had happened around him. After all, his body had been awake the entire time, his spider sense constantly gathering information, but his soul had been lost in a dream, only now awakening. Nian nodded to the many familiar faces who cast concerned glances at him, then looked up at the woman in black standing before him. Death, I want to make a deal with you. Oh. The woman in black was surprised that the young man knew her identity so quickly, which only made her want him even more. She smiled mysteriously. What deal? Nian said calmly, you leave this place immediately. Never set foot on Earth again. What if I don't? Death smiled faintly. Nian said bluntly, I will let the raven devour my soul immediately. Nian. Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Spider-Woman, and the others all paled. Death's smile faded, and he stared directly at Nian. The raven is still with me, you know. Nian said gravely, if my soul is gone, even if I die, I won't be able to enter the afterlife, right? Death fell silent, as if in thought. Nian clenched his fists. He was just talking. Who would risk their soul? He was betting on something he could get for nothing. He was betting on death to give in. Otherwise, let's fight it out. A few seconds passed. Forget it. Death shook his head and smiled. I agree to your deal, in the name of the Creator God. Most of the transcendents on the scene were stunned, seemingly unprepared for Death to make such a drastic concession. Or was he fearing them, using this as a pretext to back down? Then, swish. Wonder Woman unleashed her sword. The golden sword, like a flash of lightning, pierced through the opponent's body. No, the sword didn't strike a physical object, but passed through Death's seemingly non-existent form. There's no rush. Death's lips curled in delight. Her graceful, alluring form, like mist, had lost its substance and was gradually fading. Death ignored Wonder Woman, who swung her sword at her. She glanced at the crowd and declared her sovereignty. You only have a few days at most, Buddy and I will be together forever. As soon as she finished speaking, Death vanished like a black mist into the air of the cabin bar, its ominous aura fading with it. After the other party left, Cheetah and the White Queen breathed a sigh of relief. They had both had a strong premonition that if they truly engaged in battle, even if they could keep the other party here, at least half of them would be killed or wounded. Regardless, the best outcome was the other party yielding and retreating, with no casualties. However, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, and the others showed no sign of relief. What did she mean by a few days? Spider-Woman removed her cowl, revealing Gwen's delicate, worried face. She urgently asked Nian, lying on the ground. Her question echoed the sentiments of many on the scene. It's okay. Nian's face was a little pale. He showed a sunny smile and said nonchalantly, I'm glad you're okay. Chapter 288 The Unacceptable Cruel Fact. What do you mean, we're fine, what about you? Gwen's eyes misted with tears. Her spider sense gave her a lingering feeling of unease. Supergirl Kara instinctively activated her X-vision, scanning Nian's body. Her sweet, delicate face paled, her eyes filled with disbelief. Kara, what did you see? Spider-Woman suppressed her emotions and glanced at Supergirl beside her. What did your scan show? Tell me. Senior. Kara opened her mouth, but her throat felt constricted, and she couldn't speak. Okay, I'm fine. Nian lifted Wanda from the ground and stroked Gwen's soft, short blonde hair. Under the gaze of the other transcendents present, he glanced at the tall, graceful figure beside him. Wonder Woman Diana. Auntie. Nian called softly in his heart, a smile naturally playing on his lips. Auntie, you're here. I'm sorry I didn't tell you I was on the ship. I'll definitely reflect on this when I get home. Before he could finish his words, Wonder Woman sheathed the golden Excalibur at her waist and slung the Vulcan sword back across her back. Then, she stepped forward and embraced Nian, who was holding Wanda. This is a real aunt, Nian thought, inhaling the subtle fragrance of violets. He opened his mouth to say something, but Wonder Woman suddenly cupped his face, her silver crowned head lowered, revealing her flawless features. A touch of exquisite warmth spread across her lips, and something even more fragrant and soft was offered. The extraordinary beings present were stunned. Diana. I knew you were cheating. Cheetah's eyes blazed with anger, believing Wonder Woman was asserting her dominance. Gwen and Kara were stunned at first, but then their eyes lit up with anticipation, their fists clenched secretly. Under the gaze of the crowd, a subtle sound of water echoed, concluding the exchange of media. The master of the familiar was triggered. A powerful aura surged from Nian's body. He closed his eyes and slowly opened them again. His pupils had transformed into a shimmering golden hue. His short hair cascaded down his shoulders and waist, its color shifting from black to shimmering, snow-white hue. Demigod mode. Nian's exposed skin was translucent, his overall flawlessness surpassing that of a god. But, this peak demigod mode only lasted for a short time. Then, Nian's divinely radiant form dimmed and withered, a hint of weakness returning to his handsome features. A faint black mist emanated from his neck, and his snow-white hair, once brimming with divine power, returned to its original black. Ahem. Silence fell over the bar. Nian, in his demigod form, coughed softly. Though powerful, he displayed a visible weakness. Wonder Woman held him, more like a support, not letting go. A wave of hesitation flashed across her beautiful eyes that Nian had never seen before. "I'm fine, Auntie," Nian whispered, hugging Wonder Woman back. "What a pity." A hoarse, cold whisper echoed from the cabin. The witch gave Nian a deep look, then silently took a step back. Her gray form sank into the haze, vanishing instantly. "Emma, did you sense anything too?" Leopard Woman frantically glanced at the White Queen, who remained silent beside her. The White Queen sighed. His spirit and life force are extremely weak, and he's steadily declining, like an elderly or seriously ill patient, halfway to the grave, enveloped in death. "What did you say?" Leopard Woman's eyes widened, unable to accept it. She stared at Wonder Woman and shouted frantically, "Diana, you have a way to save him, right? You're a god, and you're just saving an ordinary man. You can't be without a solution." "Shut up." The green-haired girl barked, her pale green eyes glaring at Leopard Woman. The vibranium-clad Leopard Woman was instantly sent flying backwards out of the bar. "Don't be afraid, little brother. You won't die. Boss, I promise." Lorna promised, gazing at Nian. "Really? That makes me feel so safe." Nian coughed lightly and grinned. "Also, I'm so glad you're okay. Stupid little brother, who asked you to come over? I'm your boss, how could anything happen to me?" As Lorna spoke, she turned her face away, her eyes slightly red. She regretted it. Susan was in an area behind the crowd, whispering to herself, "So, his name is Nian Prince. It turns out, Mara, you and I have fallen in love with the same person. Yes, we are really destined to be together." Mara's beautiful face could not hide the sadness, and she asked Susan, who was standing next to her, "Susan, aren't you going over? Haven't you been looking for him? Didn't you go over either?" Susan forced a smile. Mara was silent for a moment, then looked at Nian from afar and said, "Now is not the right time for a reunion. We should be more romantic, joyful, and relaxed. Then I'll stay with you and watch him here." Susan wiped her eyes with her sleeve and said casually, "At least, like you, I know the name of the person I like. Harley. The bus is over there." At the entrance of the bar, Shark King Nanavi raised a finger and pointed at the young man surrounded by the crowd. "Are you mistaken? How could he be?" Harley Quinn said this, but the moment she saw Nian, clearly seeing his true appearance for the first time, she was certain. That's right. It was the little black cat. The cat boss who changed the fate of Task Force X on the island nation. After so long, she finally found him. The one who left his mark on her. But Harley Quinn couldn't laugh. She had originally planned to confront him and vent her anger and resentment. But she knew he didn't have many days left. Harley Quinn couldn't bring herself to hate him. Instead, a more complex mix of emotions took over. Just as she felt herself losing her mind, raindrops dripped from her chin onto her hands. That wasn't rain. Huh? Harley Quinn touched her smudged makeup and belatedly said, "Am I crying? Why is this happening?" Gwen could no longer contain her emotions, unable to accept the reality of the situation, tears streaming down her face. "That bastard. I'm going to kill her." Supergirl's eyes were filled with rage, her fists clenched and rattling. "Alright, you're acting like I'm going to die today," Nian smiled weakly. Meanwhile, the Grand Era cruise ship pitched violently, visibly sinking dozens of meters before suddenly rising into the air and leaving the sea. Crack! Cracks spread from the bottom of the cabin upwards, spreading throughout the entire Grand Era cruise ship. Tens of thousands of crew members and passengers screamed and wailed in the cruise ship's cabins. "Kara, Gwen, go ahead." Nian's eyes lit up and he smiled. "You're superheroes. You should have things you need to do right now." Chapter 289 The End of the Great Era. A figure clad in a tight black and white spider suit leaped from the sixth deck. Midair, Spider-Woman's petite frame was encased in a crimson metallic coating, forming a sleek, seamless nano-armored spider suit. With a snap, Spider-Woman swiftly climbed and swung around the floating Great Era cruise ship, launching webs to repair the cracked hull and cling to the crumbling, disintegrating hull. Nian, how could this be? He'll be fine. I won't let anything happen to him. Panicked, Spider-Woman grasped the ends of countless spider threads with both hands and pulled with all her might, restoring one side of the ship's crumbling deck. "I told you I'd protect him." Whoosh! She soared from the sixth deck at a speed that broke the sound barrier, transforming into a human-shaped stream of light. Her red cape fluttered. Superwoman soared to the bottom of the Great Era cruise ship at breakneck speed. Kara looked up and saw it. Her cousin, Carl, was holding up the Grand Era cruise ship, nearly suffocating under the weight of the kryptonite mountain. His stern, square face was filled with agony, blood trickling down his steely arms. He was exhausted. Beside him, the all-white vibranium kryptonite cyborg, White Vision, was locked in a fierce battle with Iron Man. White Vision's target was clearly Superman, who was unable to fight back. White Vision repeatedly tried to break through Iron Man's defenses, attempting to pierce the kryptonite in his palm into Superman's torso. "What are you doing?" It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Seeing this, Kara, already filled with rage, saw Supergirl's dark golden hair flying wildly. At full speed, she was almost instantly in front of White Vision. Her fist, clenched since the sixth deck, swung down with a hurricane force. White Vision's onboard intelligence worked incredibly quickly. He swiftly raised his left palm, intending to strike with a kryptonite spear in his palm, but what happened? Crack! The kryptonite spear shattered. Supergirl swung another punch, the air surging as it struck White Vision squarely on the forehead. Crack! The kryptonite on White Vision's forehead shattered, and it froze, its vibranium body losing its function and plummeting into the sea. Iron Man, standing nearby, was momentarily stunned. "Cousin, I'll do it!" Supergirl shouted, approaching Superman, using her hands and shoulders to support the base of the kryptonite mountain. Superman, watching Kara approaching Supergirl, finally released his grip. His body, already stretched to its limit, swayed briefly before free-falling backward. Iron Man had intended to catch it, but a bat-shaped fighter plane swooped down from the sky, outpacing him as he plunged into the sea. Supergirl took over from her cousin, supporting the weight of the kryptonite mountain and the Grand Era. This was clearly the heaviest weight she had ever carried in her life, bar none. The moment she took over, the Grand Era continued its slow descent. Supergirl's petite body, barely half Superman's, held her slightly slender shoulders and hands firmly against the base of the kryptonite mountain. "I can do this." Supergirl bit her lower lip, her jewel-like eyes brimming with fighting spirit. "Senior, lend me your strength. He believes in me, I can do this. Believe in yourself. Believe in Nian." Buzz, the kryptonite mountain and the Grand Era came to a stop in midair, about 10 meters above the sea. Then, they soared upwards again, bit by bit. Zzz! Streams of green light mist emanated from the kryptonite mountain and were absorbed by Supergirl Kara's body below. Instead of weakening her, it only made Supergirl even more powerful. Supergirl's eyes flashed green, and she flew faster and faster, far exceeding Superman's previous lift, heading back towards Metropolis's harbor. Failed. Inside a cabin somewhere on the Grand Era, Lex Luthor, sitting on the sofa, suddenly opened his eyes, a look of disbelief on his face. His actions and goals were, of course, more than just killing Superman, but killing Superman was the first and most crucial step in his plan. After killing Superman in front of the Avengers and the Justice League, he would prove to the world that even mortal gods were no better than him, and that humanity possessed limitless potential. Lex Luthor would then launch the Legion of Doom, a truly unstoppable alliance. But, the hunt for Superman had failed. "This is impossible." Lex Luthor's eyes were bloodshot. His plan had been perfect, even Batman had missed a step. With the other superheroes, Iron Man, Batman, Supergirl, Spider-Woman, and so on, temporarily trapped inside the ship, they were perfectly capable of using kryptonite and the Vision to deal with Superman outside. Then, implement the next plan. What Lex Luthor hadn't anticipated was that Enchantress and Polaris, these accomplices he had strategically employed, would suddenly stop fighting and head for the sixth deck. Who knew what the White Queen and Cheetah were doing on deck, wasting so much time? Then, a cold voice echoed from within the cabin. "I told you, you're doomed to fail. Because, from beginning to end, you've overlooked the most important person on the ship. Even if he does nothing, he could still affect the entire battle." "Who is he?" Lex Luthor asked. The cold voice fell silent, no response. At that moment, the door to the cabin was opened by someone outside. Lex Luthor looked back and saw a man dressed as a sailor entering. "Did I say that this isn't allowed here?" Lex Luthor hadn't finished his words when the sailor's appearance changed. In his place was a green-skinned, bald man wearing only blue shorts and a blue cape, taller and more muscular than Superman. "I found you, Mr. Lex Luthor. Let me introduce myself. I'm Martian Manhunter. The green-skinned man spoke softly, politely. I've been commissioned by the Justice League to formally arrest you. Martian Manhunter. So Batman has a hidden teammate, another damn alien. Lex Luthor chuckled. With sincere eyes, Martian Manhunter spoke gently. Mr. Lex Luthor, your ideas are too extreme. You can't continue like this. You're harming yourself and others. So, you want to throw me in a mental hospital or a psychiatric facility for the rest of my life? Lex Luthor laughed, his face turning frantic. Don't even think about it. Martian Manhunter, telepathically reading his thoughts, said, don't. Lex Luthor bit down, blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. He collapsed onto the sofa, his face gloomy and dejected. Having already lost, he had no intention of continuing to live. After all, the stakes were already set. Why bother? The Martian Manhunter shook his head at this. He stepped forward toward Lex Luthor, but at that moment, a wave of energy erupted without warning throughout the room. Boom. The terrifying wave of energy engulfed everything in the room. The Martian Manhunter resisted the impact head-on with his body. With a gentle exhale, he created a hurricane that blew away the smoke and fog. The entire cabin was completely destroyed, the sofa reduced to ash, but no trace of Lex Luthor's body remained. Who? The Martian Manhunter's eyes flashed with confusion. Someone had evaded his detection and taken Lex Luthor's body. Chapter 290 and let's go home. It was a weekend, late at night. At the Metropolis port, above the sea, beneath the night sky, a dazzling green light shown as an unidentified object approached the city's harbor. The port staff, and even the residents of the surrounding area, looked up in shock. Buzz! The green, unidentified object approached the harbor at breakneck speed, its visible size growing ever larger. By the time it was 1,000 meters from the port, it was revealed to be a massive green crystalline mountain. Atop it rested the half of a massive cruise ship, its hull now covered in white spider silk and webs. Even more astonishing was the sight of a petite, slender female figure at the base of the green crystalline mountain and the luxury cruise ship. A girl in a Superman suit, shrouded in a fluorescent green aura, descended like a deity, carrying the mountain on her shoulders. As for the crumbling dome of the luxury cruise ship, another girl in a spider-armored suit stood there. 4 steel spider claws extended from her back, piercing the cruise ship's hull like spears. Her hands tightly grasped countless white spider silk threads, stabilizing the ship. In the airspace surrounding the luxury cruise ship, one could faintly see Iron Man, the Batplane, and others, like professional workers patching up the cracks in the hull, before making an emergency landing in Metropolis Harbor. Boom. When Supergirl landed the mountain of kryptonite, along with the cruise ship, on the open space in the center of the harbor, the entire port shook. This also marked the end of the extraordinary events aboard the Grand Era cruise ship. Inside the 8th deck, Barry Allen, the Flash, panted heavily, like an ordinary person who had just finished an 800-meter run, staring at the empty deck. Just now, a man with a metal left arm, dressed like a secret agent, appeared in the cabin and waved to the boy in silver armor. The boy immediately vanished with him to the outer deck at high speed. Is it over? The Flash gazed out the window at the harbor, his mind finally coming to its senses. The entire experience felt like a race. The decks and walls of the 8th deck were covered in footprints, large and small. If you counted the steps, they'd probably circle the Earth. The 7th deck. Victor, are you alright? Batman waved his black cape and walked into the battle scene, ravaged by missiles and lasers. He spotted Cyborg in a corner. It's okay. Cyborg, a member of the Justice League, shook his head, grasped Batman's offered hand, and used the force to rise from the sunken floor where he was sitting. Where's Black Vision? Batman asked solemnly, looking around. He just escaped from here. I was powerless to stop him. Cyborg said helplessly, but before he could finish his words, a tall, burly figure appeared in the cabin. It's with me. The green-skinned man walked with a leisurely pace, appearing steady and elegant. He held a completely dysfunctional black vibranium-coated body in his hands. It was none other than Black Vision. But now, Black Vision's vibranium-clad chest bore a distinct fist mark, his flawless, work-of-art body riddled with pits and dents, as if ripped open by someone. Who are you? Cyborg's electronic left eye flickered, realizing that his access to the world's intelligence network couldn't find a matching identity. Hello, Cyborg, Mr. Victor Stone. Martian Manhunter said gently, you can call me Martian Manhunter. I normally blend into human society under various disguises, so it's understandable that you don't recognize me. He's a new member of our alliance, Batman explained, then gazed at Martian Manhunter with a questioning look. Martian Manhunter shook his head, saying with a hint of pity, Lex Luthor died before my eyes. But someone eventually took his body. Who? Batman asked. I don't know, Martian Manhunter whispered. I haven't read any telepathy from him. There are only two possibilities. One, his telepathic level is far superior to mine, or the other, he's an intelligent being like the Vision. Either way, it's no small feat. Intelligent. Batman's eyes flickered, his thoughts unclear. Clang. Iron Man flew onto the 5th floor deck and walked inside, revealing a single figure sitting alone on the ground. The other person, dozing off. Iron Man's nano-steel helmet slipped away, revealing a slightly speechless, young man's face. What are you doing here? Iron Man kicked the dozing figure. Oh. Deadpool, waking from his dream, quickly climbed to his feet, swords in hand, shouting, let's fight another 3,000 rounds. Where's the enemy? Iron Man glanced around. Yeah, where's he? Where did he go? Deadpool quickly scanned the empty surroundings. Where was Deathstroke? Damn it. He snuck off while I was asleep. Trash. Deadpool shouted indignantly. Iron Man. Tony Stark felt a headache. What kind of members did he recruit? The Hulk, the king of the Civil War, a Thor who occasionally descended to Earth, not to mention Deadpool. The three of them combined are not as reliable as the high school girl, Spider-Woman. It seems that the Avengers still have to continue recruiting talents. In the 6th floor cabin, inside the bar, Cheetah and the White Queen took advantage of the chaos to escape the scene. Susan and Mara also quietly left the bar. King Shark and Harley Quinn ran away to an unknown place. Supergirl and Spider-Woman were outside the cruise ship. Only Nian, Wanda, Wonder Woman, Lorna, and Zatanna were left at the scene. The girl's eyelashes trembled slightly, and Wanda woke up from her coma. She opened her eyes and was stunned. She was in the arms of Master Nian, with Miss Diana and outsiders beside her. This was so unmade-like. Wanda's face flushed slightly as she broke free from his embrace and landed on the ground. She glanced at Nian for reassurance. Master, are you okay? Just now. Don't worry, it's all right now. With Wonder Woman's support, Nian's pale face broke into a smile. He stroked Wanda's crimson hair, took her hand, and said, let's go home. Okay, Master. Wanda instinctively clenched Nian's hand, her heart aching, a deep sense of unease. She glanced at Diana, who was standing beside her and saw her pursed lips, as if trying to suppress something. Boss. Nian extended his hand. Lorna, a green-haired girl of similar age and height to Wanda, who always refused to listen to others, obediently stepped forward and embraced him. Let's go home. Nian smiled, the silver necklace pendant on his chest gleaming brightly. A cloud of blue mist suddenly swirled around the four of them. In the blink of an eye, it was all gone. Nian, Wonder Woman, Wanda, and Lorna all disappeared into the cabin bar. Zatanna, dressed as a magician, remained alone, with a complex expression and a long sigh. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Nian's time is running out. The next morning, Nian felt his breathing grow labored, his chest heavy. Could he possibly last the entire day? He awoke, opened his eyes, and saw a cute little orange cat resting on his chest. Next to him was a glass jar. Seeing Nian awake, the little orange cat immediately leaned forward, extending its soft, barbed tongue to affectionately lick his cheek. Little Emperor, stop it. It's itchy. Nian held Xiao Wang in his arms, finally breathing a sigh of relief. In the glass jar nearby, a colorful starfish wore a human-like expression of sadness, its single eye gazing at the boy. Okay, Guanluo, I'm still here, Nian smiled faintly, picking up the jar along with it. He left the room. Despite breakfast being prepared, Nian found himself empty, even though he knew his aunt wasn't home. Wanda wasn't home, that was beyond his expectations. Did she go to school? Tap tap. Just then, Footsteps quietly echoed in the living room behind him. Looking back, Nian saw a circular portal formed by the rotation of Mars appear out of thin air. A bald woman in a black robe passed through it and entered his living room. "Good morning, Master Ancient One. It's been a while since we last met," Nian greeted as usual, though he looked pale, a hint of paleness etched across his delicate features. "I learned about you from Wanda, and she requested that I come and see you," the Ancient One said softly. Nian nodded, unconcerned, and asked, "How is she now?" "She's emotionally unstable, on the verge of a mental breakdown. She wanted to come back to take care of you, but I left her in Kamartaj." "Really? Thank you." Nian nodded gently, knowing that the Ancient One was doing this for Wanda's good. The Ancient One stared at Nian, silent for a few seconds before speaking. "I'm sorry. I was busy with a very important matter in Kamartaj yesterday, so I didn't notice what was happening on the ship." "There's nothing to apologize for," Nian shook his head. Master Ancient One suddenly took a few steps forward and slapped him lightly on the chest with his right hand. Nian trembled all over and felt his consciousness suddenly peeled back from his body. Nian opened his eyes wide and saw his intact body. He was about to fall down, but was supported in time by Master Ancient One in front of him. This was because his own soul had been removed from his body by Master Ancient One. Nian soon understood something. While supporting the boy's body, Master Ancient One looked at the boy's soul in front of him, and his usually calm face was slightly moved. Nian looked down and noticed it. In the light from the balcony outside, his soul was looming, and a thick black fog was wrapped around his soul, tightly locked with the boy's body in front of him. Master Ancient One frowned, and finally said in a deep voice, "It is my dereliction of duty that I failed to prevent the existence that caused such injuries from entering the earth." Nian knew that even the Ancient One could not save him. He understood his own condition better than anyone else. Even a body of steel or a demigod couldn't heal on its own, so the chances of the Ancient One being able to save him were slim to none. "Master, don't blame yourself. Even if you're the supreme sorcerer, you're not omnipotent." Nian's soul returned to his body. He opened his eyes, coughed softly, and spoke, "I have a favor to ask of you." As if knowing his thoughts, the Ancient One said firmly, "I'll take good care of Wanda. That's just the first half of the request. There's also the second half." At that moment, Nian's eyes shone brightly, and he spoke sincerely, "Supreme Sorcerer, if I'm no longer here, I want to ask you." In response to Nian's request, the Ancient One remained silent for a long moment. He glanced around the living room and asked, "Will she not spend your final days with you?" Nian knew who the she was referring to, and smiled. "My aunt said she's going somewhere, and I'll wait for her return." This was something they had agreed on last night. Master Ancient One was about to say something when a loud noise erupted from the living room balcony. Nian looked in the direction of the sound and was stunned. A high-end metal-framed bed flew in from outside. A man dressed as a doctor in a white lab coat was bound to the bed with steel cables. He struggled and cried for help. A green-haired girl in a t-shirt and sweatpants stood at the end of the bed, arms folded across her chest, and followed the doctor down onto the living room balcony. "Boss, what are you doing?" Nian's eyes twitched as he approached the balcony entrance. "He's the best doctor in New York. I invited him over to see me." Lorna leaped from the bed and, with a wave of her hand, the steel cables binding the doctor untied. "Hey, how do you invite people like that? You're breaking the law, and I didn't agree," the doctor said as he rose from the bed. Upon seeing Nian, both he and Nian were startled. They actually knew each other. "You're not that child," the doctor exclaimed in surprise. "See you again, Dr. Strange." Nian scratched his head awkwardly. The doctor in front of him, forcibly abducted from New York by Lorna, was the same doctor Nian had met when Wanda was last in a coma. "Is he the one you want me to treat a critically ill patient?" Dr. Strange glanced at Lorna and pointed at Nian. Lorna nodded. Dr. Strange took a deep breath and said quickly, "Doctor, please let me come. Even for free." Ever since their last encounter with Wanda's inexplicable illness, Strange had been questioning his life, even his own genius. Now, he wanted to regain his confidence from Nian. "He'll cure you of whatever ails you." Washington, First Hospital. With his connections within the industry, Strange quickly secured a fully equipped, state-of-the-art operating room. After scanning the teenager's body using various methods and equipment, he scanned the young man once more. Strange's eyes were filled with disbelief, his mouth wide open. His understanding had once again been overturned, even trampled upon. What's wrong with your body? It's harder than steel. The state of your cells, hiss. Strange gasped, his hands shaking as he looked at the test data in his hands. Oh my god, your cells are endlessly dividing and self-eating. The symptoms are similar to cancer, but the situation inside is 1,000, 10,000 times more severe than that of a late-stage cancer patient. Nian shrugged, sounding like he was about to lie down. You're still alive. It's a miracle. Strange muttered to himself. That's right, it must be because your body is so different from others that you're still alive. He sighed heavily. It's a pity. No known disease in the world, not even Ebola, can infect a body of your strength. But your current illness is so unique and severe. It's unprecedented. It's like being stared at by the god of death. Doctor, based on your estimation, how long do I have left? Nian asked softly, his face calm. Strange looked at the young man with regret, and said in a deep voice, 3 days, 3 days at most. 3 days. Nian nodded secretly. This time was about the same as he guessed. Chapter 292, No Hope, the Ownership of the Soul Gem. Ding, ding, ding. Inside the advanced operating room at First Washington Hospital. Metal-framed beds, chairs, test needles, scalpels, medical equipment, everything made of metal vibrated. With a clang, the operating room door suddenly flew inward. Strange's eyes widened in surprise as he saw a green-haired girl in athletic attire walk in. Her hands shimmered with a strange, glowing green light, her petite figure instantly dominating the entire area. You can't even diagnose what the illness is, how dare you call yourself a genius doctor? Lorna's pale green eyes shone coldly. With a single glare, a surge of green tidal energy surged through the air. Every piece of metal in the room, including the entire operating table, was flung back, crashing into the wall and shattering window glass everywhere. Boss. Nian hurried forward and grasped Lorna's hand. If this continued, it would likely turn into a major medical dispute. Lorna said seriously, Brother, I'll continue looking for a doctor for you. There's none in New York or Washington, so I'll go abroad and bring you the best. I'll definitely be able to cure you. No need. Nian shook his head gently. If there was even a glimmer of hope, he would have fought for it himself. Unfortunately, Earth's medical standards simply couldn't cope with the current situation. Even the medical standards of advanced alien civilizations probably wouldn't be enough. No, I'm going. I must find one. Lorna's face was stubborn, and she clenched her fists. If we stop here, wouldn't it mean we've given up completely? Nian feigned a pitiful expression. I'm all alone now. Boss, you won't have the heart to leave me and run off on your own, will you? Too much? You're going too far. Lorna glared at Nian with gritted teeth, unable to move another step. She really couldn't bear it. You jerk. Let's go. I really don't like this hospital environment. Nian smiled, took Lorna's hand, and walked out of the operating room. He watched them disappear into the corridor. Dr. Strange sat dejectedly in the chair, with a bitter taste on his lips. Indeed, what kind of genius doctor is he? He can't even tell what the disease is. Even if you study medicine, there are still some people you can't save. Outside the hospital, white clouds blocked the sun, casting a large shadow on the city streets. The boy and the girl walked hand in hand on the sidewalk. Little brother, where do you want to go? I'll go with you. Lorna did not struggle to break free from the boy's hand, and whispered with a rare tenderness. Nian said without hesitation, Tell me first, why did you go to the big time? You stupid little brother, at this time, can't you think about your own business? Lorna glared at him angrily, but when she saw the paleness on his face, she immediately looked weak. Your business is my business, isn't it? Nian said as a matter of course, we are a family. Lorna choked, she took a deep breath, and responded softly, On Wednesday, I received a mysterious letter. There was a boat ticket in it, and the letter contained information about Pietro's whereabouts, and I needed to go to Metropolis alone. Lorna recounted some of her experiences in the past few days. I did see Pietro on the Grand Times cruise ship. I originally wanted to take him away from the cruise ship, but then a man appeared in front of us. Man? Nian asked curiously, Is it Lex Luthor? Nian took out his mobile phone and swiped out a photo of Lex Luthor when he was alive. It wasn't him. Lorna shook her head and said gravely, That man was definitely not human. He was green all over, with a red light bubble on his head, and he was dressed strangely. It told me to deal with Iron Man and Batman after the cruise ship left the open sea. After the success, it told me to take Pietro and leave. You agreed. Nian frowned. He knew that with a Polaris boss's temperament, he would never listen to threats or orders. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. Lorna said gravely, looking back now, it's like my brain was broken. There was a voice in my head constantly suggesting and inducing me. I was worried that it would hurt Pietro, so I finally agreed to the deal for the time being. A voice in my head. Nian muttered to himself. Isn't this telepathy? Similar to Guanluo's. Of course, the other party's telepathy was clearly more advanced than Guanluo's, capable of making a powerful transcendent like Lorna make decisions that would be contrary to her normal self. This terrifying power of manipulating people's minds. Naturally, it wasn't something an ordinary person like Lex Luthor could possess, and the White Queen could only peer into his thoughts. But one thing was certain. There was another mastermind behind the extraordinary events aboard the Grand Air cruise ship, hiding behind Lex Luthor. Even Hydra was merely a pawn at their disposal. Boss, this is for you. Nian pondered for a moment, then pulled a silver metal necklace from his pocket. The pendant was engraved with strange runes. What is this? Lorna's eyes widened, instantly recognizing it. Nian and Wanda both wore similar necklaces and pendants. Wear this. From now on, you won't be afraid of any telepathic enemies. Nian smiled, placing the necklace around Lorna's neck. It was the unclaimed mind necklace. Nian had assumed Wanda would choose this mind necklace, but Wanda chose the reality stone, once an ether particle. Now, this heart necklace is a perfect match for my sister, Lorna. I'll keep it safe. Even if I die, I won't let it go. Lorna put the necklace pendant inside her clothes, gently patted her flat chest, and promised firmly. Nian shook his head. If you can't keep it, give it away. In my opinion, your safety is far more valuable than this necklace. It was noon. On the pedestrian street. Wearing a sporty outfit, with her green hair tied in a ponytail, the capable and dashing Lorna pointed to a commercial building. Hey, do you want to go there? Nian glanced at the place Lorna pointed and rolled his eyes. He didn't want to be arrested by Gwen's father on the spot. I want to go to a place, Nian said suddenly. Where? Lorna tilted her head. Washington High School. Although it was Monday, it was already noon after school, and the school building was deserted. A black-haired boy and a green-haired girl appeared in the hallway. Nian stopped at the door of his classroom. The classroom was empty. Looking at the familiar desks and chairs, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If he hadn't been exposed to the extraordinary world, he might still be reading and writing here like a normal student. However, Nian looked at the cute little face with delicate white skin beside him. If he hadn't been exposed to the extraordinary, he wouldn't have met such a good person around him. Nian held Luna's little hand tightly. I really don't want to die. The boy thought unwillingly. Chapter 293 Wanting a Child. Nian. A deep voice boomed from behind Nian and Lorna, breaking the silence in the hallway. Nian turned to see a tall, burly man, his muscles as muscular as a bodybuilder's. It was none other than their class instructor, Instructor Roth. Instructor Roth glared at him and berated him. You've been acting like a nobody lately. You didn't come to class this morning again. Even the class monitor has been corrupted by you, skipping class just like you. Gwen didn't come to class today either. Thinking of this, Nian couldn't help but reflect, oh my goodness, I'll definitely do it next time. Instructor Roth stepped forward, patted him on the shoulder, and said, from now on, you must come to class every time. No more absences. Okay, Nian agreed. Promise me. Instructor Roth stared at him, insisting. I promise you, Nian promised, his eyes burning, I won't miss classes anymore. You said it, and I'll remember it. Don't even think about going back on your word. If you don't help me grow into an outstanding doctoral student, I won't forgive you. Instructor Roth snorted, then turned and left with his hands in his pockets. Who's this uncle? Lorna frowned slightly. Not many people dared to act so arrogantly in front of her, and even put their hands in their pockets. Nian looked at Instructor Roth's back, thought for a moment, and then softly commented, he's my class instructor, a very good teacher. He didn't look at me the whole time. Lorna pondered, it's like he's seen me before. Nian was stunned at the words. Teacher's office. Instructor Roth entered, closed the door with his backhand, and then leaned his back against it, reaching out to wipe the corner of his eye. Damn it. That brat, Nian, is actually the silver-haired goddess I once admired. God, why can't good people live longer? Instructor Roth buried his face in his hands, sobbing. That's right. On the Grand Era cruise ship. After being struck by the White Queen's kick, Instructor Roth had regained consciousness, but continued to feign unconsciousness, lying on the ground outside the bar, observing the movements inside. Deathstruck, the Extraordinary gathered, the Soul Contract, and finally, Nian's public ascension to demigod mode. He had witnessed almost everything. It was precisely because of this that Instructor Roth could no longer contain his emotions. Not only was she the silver-haired goddess, but she was also his cherished student. Wiping tears from his face with his sleeve, trying to control his emotions, Instructor Roth looked up and was stunned. In front of him, against the light from the window, his long, sparkling white hair fluttered gracefully, and a young and beautiful female teacher stared at him. What did you just say? Who's dying? Felicia asked gravely. Horizontal ellipsis. Nian and Luna walked out of the high school gate. Where to next? Luna looked at Nian. Nian hesitated. He'd actually wanted to go to a place near the school, but it wasn't convenient to bring Luna with him right now. Then, whoosh! A sudden gust of wind blew up the street, blowing up dust and sand, blinding passers-by. Swoosh! A dark figure, carrying a hurricane-like force, approached them at high speed. Its speed was so great that it was impossible to discern its presence. Who is it? Luna's tiny body blocked Nian's path. As the fluorescent green light on her tiny hand illuminated, a magnetic shockwave suddenly erupted forward. Buzz! The mysterious shadow ignored the magnetic shockwave, pausing only for a moment before continuing its descent. Luna pressed her tiny hand downward, and the iron pole of the streetlight on the road bent, quickly wrapping around the shadow like a lasso. Bang! The air exploded. The mysterious black figure's speed suddenly soared, several times faster than before. It flew past the streetlight and darted past Lorna's shoulder. A hurricane of wind followed. Little brother. Lorna turned back in shock, but Nian had vanished. In the blink of an eye, the shadowy figure, carrying Nian, vanished over the street. That guy. Lorna gritted her teeth. The mysterious figure wasn't wearing a single piece of metal. Washington, over 1,000 meters above the sky. Nian stared at the white-haired girl, her arms wrapped around her, propel her upwards, speechless. Kara, what are you doing? His spider sense hadn't given any warning. Otherwise, he would have used the dimensional necklace to carry Lorna away long ago. However, Kara's sudden action left him baffled. Her white-haired hair, blue miniskirt, and red Superman cape fluttered in the strong wind. Kara smiled mysteriously. Senior, I'll take you somewhere. Kara and Nian landed on the second-floor balcony of a single-family villa outside Washington. Change your shoes before entering, Kara gestured to the slippers she'd prepared on the balcony. She slipped off her matching dark red boots and stepped onto the second-floor floor, her dainty feet clad in shiny black stockings. Nian slipped into her slippers and entered the villa. While the interior wasn't luxurious, the overall layout and details were warm and inviting. Outside, a vast expanse of lush green wheat fields, devoid of the hustle and bustle of the city, offered a soothing experience. Swish! Kara's cape and skirt swayed as she trotted barefoot, clad in black stockings, across the second-floor balcony, closing the curtains, obscuring the wheat fields outside and dimming the light inside. Kara, why are you drawing the curtains in broad daylight? Nian asked curiously. Because it's daytime. Kara stopped herself, winking playfully. She pulled Nian towards the room. I've got a surprise for you. As they neared the room, Kara feigned mystery, saying, don't make a sound. Nian, confused, nodded. Pushing the door open, they entered the second-floor room. Nian was stunned. The curtains were already drawn tightly, casting a hazy shadow. On the bed lay another young woman. She wore a tight, black, hooded spider uniform. Her shoes had long been removed, revealing her even more delicate feet wrapped in translucent white silk. Nian's eyes widened. Her petite, intact body was bound in white spider silk, like a carefully wrapped gift. Her eyes were covered with a black cloth, the tightening silk accentuating her curves. Kara, are you ready? The hooded girl shifted uncomfortably, her long, muscular legs rubbing against each other nervously. Nian's mouth felt dry. Meanwhile, Gwen froze, her spider sense sensing a familiar presence. The door closed behind Nian. Kara leaned forward, gently hugged him from behind, and whispered softly in his ear, Nian, we want a child. Chapter 294 Weak Superman Mode. The next day, it was unclear whether it was morning, noon, or afternoon. A ray of golden sunlight, finding its perfect angle, shone through the gap in the window curtains, filling the room with a faint glow. The moment Nian woke from his bed, his superhuman brain, still in perfect Superman mode, instantly cleared. Halfway up, the quilt slipped slightly from his body. A quick glance at the second-floor room revealed a tangle of quilts and clothes. A female Superman suit with a red cape and a black and white Spider-Man suit with a hood were tangled together. From the quilts on either side of her body, a small, delicate, white shoulder peeked out from the left, a perfect piece of art. From the right, a small, soft, pink foot peeked out, its veins visible. White spider silk tangled in the pillow, quilt, and clothes. Everything was in utter disarray, a glimpse of the madness of the previous night. Nian sincerely felt that if he hadn't combined the abilities of a spider with those of a Superman to achieve a perfectly controllable Superman mode, he really wouldn't be able to hold on. This was too much. Nian licked his slightly dry lips, and seeing the tired look on the girl's face, thinking that they had finally fallen asleep almost this morning, he got up quietly without waking them up. He walked out of the room and came to the living room of the second-floor villa. Nian opened the balcony curtains to both sides, and suddenly his eyes were bright. The sun, which was almost rising to the center of the sky, was like a blazing fireball, casting brilliant sunlight down, covering the wheat fields outside like a green ocean, and also bathing his perfect upper body that was as perfect as if cast from molten iron. The silver metal necklace hanging around the boy's neck shone brightly. Under the blessing of the sun, the mother of all things, Nian felt full of energy and his physical condition was at its peak. But, Nian couldn't help but cough softly. He put his hand over his mouth and looked down. A streak of blood had appeared on his hand. His delicate face, bathed in sunlight, still held a lingering, sickly paleness. Even Superman mode couldn't stop the illness. It was getting worse. Based on 3 days, there was only a day and a half left. Nian's eyes dimmed, then quickly regained clarity and brightness. He had some last-minute places he wanted to see. A sudden blue mist surged through the living room. Nian, wearing only shorts and clutching the space pendant, returned home. In a flash of orange light, a kitten leaped into his arms. Meow, Xiao Wang cried, his voice deliberately subdued. Following Xiao Wang's waving cat tail, Nian saw the green-haired girl, like a small animal, curled up on the sofa in his living room, a red cloak covering her body. His teleportation had arrived. The girl didn't react, her breaths even and subtle, still sound asleep. She stayed by your side all night and only went to bed this morning. Guanluo's thoughts reached him. Nian nodded, realizing that neither his aunt nor Wanda had returned home yet. Nian carried Lorna's body and went to Wanda's room, laying her on the bed. His movements were gentle, as if he didn't want to wake her. He even used a superhuman presence to gently wrap her body, making no sound. He removed the red cape and covered her with the quilt. Nian squatted beside the bed, quietly observing the delicate, small face of the Polaris boss as she slept. In her sleep, she revealed a lovely, gentle beauty not usually seen. "Boss, I'm sorry. I've been a responsibly humbled little brother," Nian whispered, brushing the girl's green hair from her forehead to her ears. "I clearly wanted to protect you, but in the end I still made you worry. In the future, no matter what happens, please live for yourself." Nian's pity for Luna is much higher than that for Wanda. Wanda at least had a family, but Luna has almost lived alone since she was born. That maturity far beyond her peers, behind the seemingly strong person, how much effort and bitterness has been paid. Looking at the girl's sleeping face after taking off the strong mask, Nian hesitated for a moment, but still moved closer to Luna's little face. The door closed quietly. And at the moment the door closed, the girl who had been sleeping on the bed suddenly opened her light green eyes. There was no sleepiness in Luna's eyes. She turned her body and looked at the closed door. Her fingers lightly touched her lips and whispered, "Stupid little brother, living for myself is meaningless." Back to the living room outside. Nian threw the red cape on, and it instantly transformed into a form-fitting uniform, the black windbreaker falling back to his knees. His hair remained the same black, but his pupils glowed a fluorescent green. Perfect Superman mode, with magnetic control. Actually, Nian hadn't intentionally increased his status, he laid it all out. This time, he simply couldn't resist the urge to kiss. Seeing Nian dressed for a night out, the little emperor, clutching the jar containing the can, leaped onto his left shoulder, meowing softly. Nian glanced at them, smiled, and said, "You guys want to go out too? Let's go together." The long unseen trio set off. At this moment, Earth was encircled by a barrier, inaccessible by normal means. Paradise Island. A complex of white buildings from ancient mythology. The island's tallest and most centrally located temple and palace. The palace's gates were sealed, with muscular Amazon guards stationed outside. Even Antiope, the Amazon Queen's most trusted general and Princess Diana's teacher, stood guard outside with a solemn expression, casting worried glances in the direction of the palace. Inside, the Amazon Queen sat on her throne. Near the entrance to the hall, a divinely perfect, dark-haired woman knelt on one knee. "Diana, have you made your decision?" The Amazon Queen gripped her scepter tightly, gazing intently at her daughter. "Yes, Mother, I have made my decision." Wonder Woman, with her golden sword and lasso of truth at her waist and the sword of Vulcan and the Amazon shield at her back, raised her silver-crowned head. Her eyes and voice were filled with unwavering determination. The Amazon Queen knew no one, not even herself, could change her daughter's decision. Besides, what right did she have to dissuade an Amazon warrior who had already decided to give up everything, her honor, even her life? "My daughter." The Amazon Queen looked more like a mother than a queen. Filled with love and sorrow, she stepped forward, knelt down, and embraced Wonder Woman. "Go do what you want to do, and don't regret it later. I, and all the Amazons, will always support you." Chapter 295 IOU, Learn to Meow. On a Monday afternoon, passers-by on Washington Promenade often glanced towards a small, vine-covered flower shop. Everyone who lived nearby knew about it. A flower shop had recently opened there, and its rules were unusual. None of the plants were sold to the public, requiring only untouched viewing. Furthermore, the owner, a stunning beauty, rivaled any model or celebrity. So, usually, people came to see the owner more to see her than to admire the plants. Even though she was often not on the ground floor, a chance to catch a glimpse was welcome. But for some reason, the flower shop had been closed since the night before. Many passers-by looked on with regret. Then, a black-haired boy with a small orange cat on his shoulder approached the shop, ignoring the closed-door sign. Nian looked at the door, and the magnetic lock clicked, as if opening automatically. He walked inside. Nian suddenly felt a light him, as if he were in a forest, but the feeling was different. The plants that had been lush and vibrant the previous time were now either yellowing or withering, looking sickly and dying. It was clearly spring, approaching summer, yet there was a bleak, autumn-winter feel. Nian took a quick glance and headed for the shop's second floor. The thorny poison ivy that clung to the stair railings, ceiling, and walls had also turned yellow and withered, lifeless. Nian ascended to the second floor and spotted a striking red-haired woman standing by the window, gazing out at the city view. She showed no reaction to the young man's unauthorized intrusion. She wore her usual thin green dress, which accentuated her slender, vine-like figure. However, her beautiful profile now appeared pale, like a sickly beauty, much like the yellowing, withered poison ivy that covered the second floor. "You're dying," the red-haired woman said calmly with her back to him. "Yes. I'm sorry." Nian didn't know what to say. He reached out and touched his forehead, where strange patterns of green leaves flickered faintly. Ever since the last accident in Gotham City, Nian has mastered everything about poison ivy, or in other words, has left a mark on her soul. Even if Nian does not take the initiative to control poison ivy, her life and soul are still closely connected with him. In other words, if Nian dies, poison ivy will also die. "I owe you this." Nian sighed. Poison ivy turned her back to him, still looking at the scenery outside the window. "If you don't want to see me, then I'll leave first." Nian turned around and was about to leave, but the red-haired woman suddenly hugged him from behind, and Xiao Wang fell to the ground in shock. "I won't forgive you, ever. Even in death, our souls will be entwined. Don't even think about escaping." Poison ivy grumbled, wrapping her slender, white arms around his neck. She lowered her head, opened her mouth, and bit down hard on the side of his neck. "Wow, So hard. Coming down from the second floor of the flower shop, Nian exuded a natural aura, but also unexpectedly gained another state. Poison ivy. Perhaps it was because of Gwen's ability that his multiple abilities blended seamlessly, or perhaps it was because his body was so weak that it was easier for multiple abilities to coexist. Nian exhaled, extended his finger, and inside the flower shop on the first floor, the ailing plants immediately blossomed back to life. Don't die before me, Nian muttered to himself. Nian was in Washington one moment, and in Gotham City the next. Gotham City, a speakeasy. This is it. Following Alice's guidance, Nian and Xiao Wang pushed open the door and walked in. Well, welcome. Standing at the entrance was a bartender in a giant, bloated shark costume. Seeing the young man enter, and the small orange cat on his shoulder, the shark-clad bartender froze for a moment. Then, with a quick roll of his eyes, he quickly called out to the bar kitchen, "Harley, the cat boss is here." Two of them. 5 minutes later, Nian, the Shark King, removed his shark hood, revealing his shark-like face. He and the girl with twin ponytails sat on bar stools to one side, each staring wide-eyed at the cat and the man across from them. "Nian, Harley Quinn, long time no see." "No, a day," Nian said with a smile. "Are you the cat boss, or is it?" Harley Quinn stared at Nian in surprise, then glanced at the kitten perched on his shoulder. "I suppose I am," Nian shrugged. "What evidence do you have?" Harley asked slyly. How could he prove he was the cat? Nian thought for a moment, then gestured to the firmness beneath Harley's collarbone. "I've been there before, does that count?" "Every survivor of Task Force X knows this," Harley said, spreading her hands. "All right, I'll assume you're the cat boss. What are you doing here?" Nian pointed to the black cat paw mark on the side of her neck and said bluntly, "I'm here to help you remove that." "Oh, really?" Harley narrowed her eyes. Nian was immediately confused. Hadn't they been looking for him, trying to remove the power mark left by the triad? Snap! Harley suddenly stood up from her chair, propping her hands on the table, her colorful twin tails cascading down. Harley stared directly at Nian, stroking the mark on her neck. "I want to know. Why did you leave this on me before? Does the reason still matter now?" Nian asked. "Important, very important," Harry said coldly. "Don't try to lie to me. Tell me the truth." "Okay." Nian hesitated, then explained the reason. A pet? You actually want to turn a beautiful girl into this? How perverted." Harry's expression was exaggerated with shock. "I'm definitely a better pet than her," said the Shark King Nian beside her. "Let me explain." This was back then. Before Nian could finish, Harry's beautiful face broke into another wanton smile, and she changed the subject. "But I like it." "Huh?" Nian was stunned. "Let's keep this. No need to remove it for now." Harry gently stroked the cat's claw mark. She and Nian locked gazes, her lips parted seductively, and she hinted meaningfully, "If you can survive, maybe I can really make your wish come true." Meow. She finally raised her clawed right hand, stuck out her tongue, and deliberately imitated a cat's meow. "Boss cat, welcome back next time." With King Shark's farewell words, Nian emerged from the underground bar. He cast one last glance back at the bar behind him. Nian was speechless. As expected, he still couldn't comprehend the train of thought of these perverted lunatics. Next place. Nian scooped Xiao Wang into his arms, his body suddenly vanishing, the lingering dust stirring in the air. High above Gotham City, a sound barrier was broken, and a black streak pierced the clouds, heading towards New York. Chapter 296, Daeju Sky, the Divine Mountain Boundary. In modern New York, a man-made island, the former home of SYNOPSIS, stands empty. The main building is deserted, the large factory ceases operations, and everything seems frozen in time on that night of civil unrest. Following the disbanding of the SHIELD department, the artificial island now resembles a remnant of the city, bearing the devastating scars of an earthquake and scattered with the wreckage of an aircraft carrier. Deep, sinister cracks, like centipedes, crisscross the earth and buildings, leaving many structures in critical condition. The bridge over the artificial lake also remains severely damaged and collapsed. A radioactive keep-out cordon has been established around the island, but there are no guards on duty. The entire artificial island resembles a forgotten island, devoid of its former prosperity. The artificial lake, however, offers a more natural feel, with fish and birds roaming within. As the sun sets, the lake shimmers, and a small orange cat runs across the lakeside lawn chasing dragonflies. Not far away, a woman in a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a long dress sat side by side on the lawn, facing the lake and abandoned buildings in the gentle breeze. "Why did you call me out all of a sudden?" Sky stroked her smooth, dark blonde hair, glancing at the boy with a hint of confusion. "No reason, I just wanted to see you," Nian said, resting his hands on the back of his head and lying back on the lawn. "What kind of reason is that?" The boy's blunt words caught Sky off guard. Thinking that the other person was even younger than her, Sky clenched her fists, repeating to herself, "Sky, you are an excellent and professional agent. You must not lose your composure in the face of anything. Maintain your cool composure." Sky took a few deep breaths, her icy face returning to a calm expression. But Nian's next words completely broke her defenses. "You actually wear a skirt." The boy lay on the grass, his eyes squinting at the black dress that revealed his graceful curves in the sunset. "What are you talking about? I think you have some misunderstanding about female agents." Sky, a little furious, stood up and gritted her teeth. "Female agents aren't real men. They just wear tight leather jackets for convenience. A light, comfortable dress like this is definitely better than those tight, stuffy leather jackets. Besides, you don't always wear tight leather jackets for work. Sometimes you have to disguise yourself. For example, now that I'm here to see you, I have to disguise myself. If Nick Fury or Natasha saw me, who knows what they would think." Sky clenched her fists and stamped the grass a few times, as if to vent pent-up emotions. She found that in the boy's presence, she became even more emotional, finding it difficult to enter the agent role. But she also felt more relaxed and at ease. "I see," Nian said suddenly. "What?" Sky was stunned. "Did you see inside? Black and lace? It's breathable indeed." Nian stared at Sky blankly. "Little pervert." Sky quickly covered the raised hem of her skirt, tucked it between her legs and tightened it slightly, then continued to sit back down on the lawn. "It's not what I want to see." Nian looked innocent. It was right in front of him, so he would be in trouble if he didn't see it. Sky blushed slightly, calmed down, looked at Nian and said, "2 days ago, an extraordinary incident occurred on the Grand Air cruise ship. The Avengers and the Justice League were involved. Did you know that?" "Yes." Nian's face was calm, and he nodded slightly. "It was quite a big deal. According to later intelligence analysis, even people from Hydra were involved," Sky muttered. "I heard that even Wonder Woman showed up at the scene." Sky looked at Nian with complicated eyes and asked, "What on earth happened up there?" "Nothing, it's over. You can ask the people in the Avengers and they will know." Nian paused and said softly, "Sky, I won't protect you from now on. You have to work hard on your own. With your shockwave ability." Before he finished speaking, his eyes suddenly blurred. It was Sky who turned over and sat on him nimbly, holding his shoulders with both hands, looking down at him, gritting his teeth and saying, "Sure enough. Are you trying to cancel the cooperation? Isn't this a little accident?" Nian's eyes twitched slightly. At this moment, he didn't look like a dull agent at all. Did he forget that he was wearing a skirt, not an agent's uniform? This straddling position is so indecent. Sky's face was filled with rage, and he said coldly, "I don't care. If you dare cancel this cooperation, when I become director, I will make your information public. Your identity as the adopted son of a god will be plastered all over the streets and alleys." Nian gently patted Sky's hand that was tugging at his clothes. A smile crossed his pale face, and he soothed, "I'm sorry, Sky." Sky's heart trembled. She looked at the boy beneath her, and in that moment, she seemed to realize something. Now, the sun was about to sink behind the city horizon, the rosy clouds fading, and night was approaching. Sky still held Nian's clothes tightly. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, "That night, were you the one who pulled me out of the lake?" Nian nodded subconsciously, and then a shadow enveloped him. It was not the shadow of night, but the figure of the female agent in the skirt. Their noses rubbed against each other, and their lips softly intertwined. The little orange cat beside him stared blankly at the two figures that seemed to overlap. A glass jar filled with iridescent starfish tumbled over, blocking the kitten's eyes. "This isn't for children." Dot. Swoosh. On the other side of Earth, just beyond the rising sun, above the sea, her black hair danced wildly. A goddess, bearing twin swords and a shield, wielded a golden lasso like a dragon, soaring from the night-shrouded sea to the horizon above the rising sun. She met the first rays of the rising sun, which fell upon the starlit corona. Wonder Woman Diana reached out and drew the Vulcan sword from behind her. Her slender, perfectly formed body swooped down from the sky toward the sea below, using the force of her fall to plunge the Vulcan sword, gripped tightly in both hands, into the water. With a swish, before the tip of the silver sword could even touch the sea, it abruptly stopped in midair, about 50 meters away, as if striking an invisible wall. It was a magical barrier similar to that of Paradise Island, yet even more solid and resilient. Buzz! The Vulcan sword pierced the invisible barrier, unleashing a terrifying surge of energy. Golden divine might swept through the air like a tidal wave. Open! Wonder Woman shouted, and the tip of the sword slowly sank into the barrier. Within the turbulent, chaotic tide of divine power, a faint glimpse of a vast, boundless mountain, even if shattered, could be seen within the barrier, floating in the sea. It was the true peak of the legendary, long-destroyed Mount Olympus, the Greek mountain once home to the gods. Chapter 297, Continuously Superimposed Abilities, Boundaries. Nian left New York, possessing a temporary power, shockwaves. Even Nian couldn't tell if this was a farewell or a reunion. In his final moments, he simply wanted to see some people one last time. No regrets, nothing more. His earlier encounters with Poison Ivy, Sky, and others were all due to various reasons, feelings of guilt he'd wanted to settle. But after all this back and forth, it seemed like nothing had been accomplished. Instead, the entanglement had become increasingly complex, reaching a point of inextricability. And a few more places. Nian soared through the air, glancing at the small orange cat perched on his shoulder, wishing he could be so heartless. A commercial building in downtown Los Angeles. Atop it stood a striking logo, an A redesign for the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four building. A sideline business, a high-tech company, their primary business, saving the world. In Los Angeles, the Fantastic Four were as popular as the Avengers, beloved and recognized by the citizens. Night fell, and the lights began to light up. On the upper floors of the building, the manager's office was ablaze with lights as bright as day. Files piled high on the desk. Her hair tied up looked elegant and sophisticated, and her hip-hugging dress accentuated her sexiness. The office worker, with her angelic face and model figure, had a look of sorrow on her beautiful face, her eyes occasionally lost in thought. Susan, the invisible woman, felt a constant ringing of her landline phone. She simply put the receiver aside, blocking calls from outside. Like an ostrich, Susan buried her head in the pile of paperwork. It seemed as if this would allow her to forget what happened on the ship, to return to a state where she knew almost nothing about that man. Susan hated herself like this. There was nothing she could do, nothing she could do. Let's forget all these worries. But if I don't see him now, I might never see him again. Does that even matter? Two different voices echoed in Susan's heart. In the end, only one voice remained, the loudest. No, I'm going to see him. Susan's beautiful eyes suddenly opened, their light rekindling with determination. She stood up from her office chair. Just then, a gentle knock echoed from the floor-to-ceiling window on one side of the office. Susan looked up and was stunned. She saw the black-haired boy and his cat floating 100 meters in the air outside the window, waving at her from inside. Suddenly, she saw the person she'd always wanted to see. Hey. Susan froze. She opened the window to let the man and cat in. Have a seat. What would you like to drink? Susan said, forcing herself to remain calm as she went to prepare a drink. Nian sat down on the office reception sofa and smiled. Then, a glass of water. Water. Susan paused, her hand holding the glass. In that moment, she recalled what had happened before. Back then, her body had been fused with his, inseparable. Even for dinner, they'd packed hamburgers to take home. Back then, she had no drinks at home, only water. Now, thinking back, that was truly the most torturous, yet also the most wonderful, memory. Susan's delicate lips curled upward, but then, as if struck by something, her beautiful eyes dimmed. Distracted, she dropped the glass of water in her hand. Before it even touched the ground, the glass abruptly stopped in midair, not spilling a single drop of water, before flying into the young man's hands. Nian took a sip of the cold water and whispered, "Miss Susan, I came here specifically to say goodbye. I know. Susan shuddered slightly, biting her lower lip. Our company originally researched biology. Retesting here might help. No need. Nian shook his head and said sincerely, thank you. The more states he superimposed, the stronger his abilities became. The more Nian understood what death had left on him. Even alien civilizations, let alone Earth civilization, could hardly achieve a cure. Even if they did, it would be too late. Susan's eyes welled up as she stared intently at Nian. You still owe me an introduction. Nian was startled, then stood up and said seriously, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Nian Prince. I used a pseudonym before. I'm so sorry for lying to you. I also apologize for leaving without saying goodbye last time. This time, it's a real farewell, the young man said sincerely. Nian Prince. Susan muttered softly. As if mustering courage, she walked over to Nian and said frantically but forcefully, kiss me. Miss Susan, what did you say? Nian was stunned. That's annoying. I need to confirm. Hurry. Susan pressed her right hand against the collar of her white shirt. She was clearly nervous, yet she bit her lip and urged firmly. A shy, mature woman, unexpectedly endearing. Nian's heart leaped. Then I'm coming. Nian gently embraced Susan, whose complexion was healthy and radiant, and whose figure was slightly petite and slender. Susan's eyelashes fluttered as she closed her eyes, her soft lips, painted in pale lipstick, curved alluringly in the light. Susan, how about calling your office landline? Mr. Fantastic, one of the Fantastic Four, Reed, dressed in a suit and tie, walked directly into the manager's office, holding a document. Huh? Reed glanced around the office in surprise. It was completely deserted. Susan wasn't in the office. But somehow, the window was open. Where's she? Reed closed the door and exited the manager's office. The next moment, a small orange cat poked its head out from under the desk, its eyes fluttering. Leaving the Fantastic Four building, Nian felt a sense of distress as he soared through the air. Genetic spider, Kryptonian Superman, magnetic control, poison ivy, shockwaves, invisibility. The layers of power kept piling up. Even with his spider power to help control it, and with his body still shrouded in death, he could only utilize a portion of each ability. But the layering of multiple abilities in different fields far surpassed all previous abilities. Nian felt that even with his deliberate suppression, he was nearing a critical point. But he didn't have time to wait for the superimposed power state to pass. With a swish, Nian's figure, originally hovering in the sky above the city, vanished. The next moment, he appeared on the sea surface thousands of miles away. It wasn't teleportation, but rather his speed was so swift that it disregarded all physics, as if he were leaping across space. There was no trace of any unusual movement, as if he were the embodiment of some force. Boom! Nian plummeted into the sea below, falling continuously until he reached the bottom of the ocean 10,000 meters below. The surface of the sea seemed unresponsive. At that moment, it was as if even the water itself had ignored the agitation. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 I am the Empress, 7 powers in 1. 10,000 meters beneath the sea, within a vast chasm, lies the civilization of Atlantis, once a human empire that soared to prominence with ancient terrestrial technology, but ultimately sank beneath the seas forever. At this moment, the light bridge outside the gates of Atlantis glows with a brilliance surpassing the sun. Countless underwater spaceships, large and small, dart back and forth like fish, among them visible figures of diverse races from the 6 underwater kingdoms. Ever since Princess Mara of Zebel acquired a trident and became Empress of the Kingdom of Atlantis, the 6 underwater kingdoms have gradually merged into one, breaking down the boundaries of previous nations and uniting their resources and capabilities, ushering in a new era for the underwater world. Currently, there is no longer a Kingdom of Atlantis, a Kingdom of Zebel, or a Saltwater Kingdom or Fisherman's Kingdom, as the 6 former underwater kingdoms once were. Across the entire ocean floor, there is only one civilization, the Atlantean Empire. The Atlantean Empire, a magnificent and opulent palace. Today, the imperial throne remained devoid of the figure, the enchanting gaze of countless creatures beneath the sea. It was remarkably quiet and serene. "King, haven't you come out yet?" Military advisor Vico asked the royal guards on duty before the palace gates. "Not yet," the captain, holding his trident, saluted. "What on earth happened on that cruise ship?" Military advisor Vico frowned, looking up at the throne, vacant and high above in the palace's main hall, muttering to himself with worry. Ever since Mara, the current emperor of Atlantis, had gone on a solo cruise to the land world and brought back Namor, a wanted criminal, she had remained confined to her chambers. For 2 days and 2 nights, the trident's energy pulses periodically emanated from the emperor's chambers, spreading across the vast Atlantis empire, shaking the sea and revealing the king's unrest. Vico knew that after becoming emperor, Mara's heart had become as hard as steel, and few things could shake her. That's right. Vico suddenly recalled how Mara, as emperor, had recently defied all odds and amended the laws of the undersea empire, allowing intermarriage between underwater dwellers and land dwellers. Could it be that the empress is in love? How could that be? That's impossible. Vico himself was shocked by his own audacious thought. It's always better to be prepared for the worst. Vico quickly gave orders: add more personnel, secure the palace 24/7. No one from outside, not even the royal family, is allowed in. Don't let even a single fish in. Yes, advisor. The captain of the royal guards received the order in a deep voice. However, no one, including Vico and the captain, noticed. Just then, a subtle, imperceptible ripple appeared in the water not far away. In the Atlantis Empire, in the deepest part of the palace, the Emperor's chambers. Unlike the original Atlantean palace, the Emperor's chambers were an exquisite crystal palace, a princess's palace transported from the ancient kingdom of Zabel thousands of miles away. Inside the chambers, there were no guards or maids in sight. On a shimmering scallop-shaped crystal bed, covered with a quilt as soft as coral and amber, a woman in a pink jellyfish dress lay, resembling a dazzling mermaid. Her red hair, tied into a bun, exuded an elegant and regal presence. Beneath it, a stunningly delicate face, her gorgeous jellyfish dress accentuating her captivating curves. A golden trident artifact stood beside the crystal bed, radiating powerful waves that forbade approach. A noble aura of gold and silver descended upon the woman in the dress. Beauty, yet untouchable. Suddenly, the crystal palace trembled slightly. On the seafloor directly beneath the emperor's chambers, a pair of enormous, beastly eyes suddenly opened, then, as if sensing a familiar presence, quickly closed again in relief. "You're here." Within the emperor's chambers, Mara slowly opened her beautiful eyes, sat up from the crystal bed, and inexplicably glanced toward the entrance. Gurgling. The seawater gradually expanded, revealing a previously invisible figure of a young man. He entered the palace, protected from the seawater by an oxygen-coated membrane. "Sleeping in even later than me, is this the Empress?" Nian couldn't help but grumble the moment he saw Mara. The little emperor expertly leaped from the young man's shoulders, carrying Guan Luo, making room for the two. Seeing the dark-haired young man, Mara's beautiful eyes lit up with uncontrollable joy, a captivating smile blossoming on her face. Her red lips parted. "I've been waiting for you." Nian was stunned for a moment, then spread his hands. "I'm almost dead, so it's entirely possible I'm too lazy to come." "Because I'm the Empress," Mara spoke with conviction, an aura of strength and dignity lingering around her. "It's precisely because I'm so confident in myself that I don't believe you'd be willing not to come and see me." Mara gazed at Nian, sitting on the bed, her delicate head raised slightly, her words confident and stubborn. Nian had to admit, at this moment, the sight of Mara, so stunning yet gentle, was truly captivating. Without waiting for Nian to say anything, Mara tapped the empty space next to the crystal bed. The hem of her pink jellyfish dress lifted as she spoke elegantly and seductively. "This is the bed of the Queen of Atlantis. No one but me has ever approached it. Are you sure you don't want to try it out? Since you invited me, I have to give it a try." Nian replied seriously. Half an hour later, Nian left the Atlantis Empire with the little emperor. A red lipstick mark etched on his neck. He quietly developed another temporary ability, water control. Fortunately, Nian resisted. Otherwise, who knows what the consequences would have been. Nian, carrying the little emperor and Guan Luo, rose from the bottom of the ocean 10,000 meters below. The surrounding seawater automatically parted. Even Xinian wasn't sure whether the force pushing the seawater apart was a superhuman force, magnetic energy, shock waves, force fields, or perhaps water control. His speed slowed, sensing the changes within him. As Mara's power continued to increase, Xinian felt he had broken a new boundary. Ever since acquiring the genetic spider and Kryptonian superhuman abilities, Xinian, in perfect Superman mode, has already reached the top of Earth's superhuman tier. Now, he's layered with Lorna's magnetic control, Poison Ivy's plant manipulation, Sky's shockwaves, Susan's invisibility field, and Mara's water control. None of these last 5 superhuman abilities are physical, so they don't add much to the Man of Steel's strength. However, in terms of mental and control, they've been layered to a terrifying degree, surpassing even the Man of Steel. Normally, with so many abilities layered on top, Xinian would have lost control, just like before. However, due to the curse of death, each ability has been weakened to a certain extent, and now they've perfectly combined into one. Chapter 299 Super Body Mode, Control Everything? Building upon the powerful and stable super brain of Krypton's superhuman body, he mastered silk control, magnetism, plant control, shockwave control, force field control, and water control. His mind and spirit underwent a series of qualitative changes, his control constantly evolving and sublimating. 7 extraordinary abilities, perfectly combined in one. This was the most powerful combination of abilities Nian had ever possessed, and perhaps the last. He slowly flew out of the ocean, facing the rising moon. Nian opened his eyes, a shimmering brilliance like a shattered rainbow. The little orange cat perched on his shoulder and Guan Luo, nestled in the glass jar, were stunned. Xinian, you. Guan Luo felt Nian more unfamiliar than ever. Don't worry, I'm fine, Nian said softly. He gazed at the sky, the sea, and the distant land, his heart at an unprecedented peace. Honestly, I don't even recognize myself anymore, Nian muttered softly to himself, hovering high above the ocean. I feel like I can control everything I see. With a thought, Xinian's spider sense instantly radiated outward. It easily broke through the previous 10-meter limit, extending to 1,000 meters. No, this was just the beginning. Thousands, 10,000 meters, 100,000 meters. Spider sense expanded like an ever-expanding invisible spiderweb, boundlessly expanding outward. 1,000,000 meters, 100,000,000 meters, until it enveloped the entire blue planet. Xinian closed his eyes and could simultaneously see street performers in New York performing their talents, researchers in Antarctica collecting ice, heinous criminals in the Middle East charging at gunpoint, and billionaires in Dubai petting their lions. Not only could he see clearly, but he could also hear their words. He could even hear, "The boss is so annoying, I really want to get that girl's contact information, this customer is disgusting. Go to hell, why is my husband still at home? Go on a business trip." These were the voices of the human heart. A flash of enlightenment flashed in Xinian's colorful eyes. A vast amount of external information, so vast that 10 supercomputers couldn't even comprehend it, was effortlessly presented in his mind. So, Earth hides such a civilized nation. Xinian suddenly cast his gaze towards South Africa. He saw it. In the poorest regions of South Africa, amidst the most pristine and dense forests, a nation lay hidden. It boasted a massive black leopard statue, a magnificent palace, bustling city streets, and gliding trains and intelligent spaceships everywhere. Its technological level was clearly a notch higher than that of Earth's outside world. Underground, are those vibranium mines? So that's it. A scan with his spider senses quickly revealed everything to Xinian. Or rather, no secret on Earth could be hidden from him at this moment. That's... A sudden thought struck Xinian. He spotted a familiar figure in Wakanda, a land rich in vibranium. When had that person gotten in? South Africa. Wakanda. Seemingly primitive, yet selling vibranium clothing and high-tech gadgets. A black woman, masked and dressed like the locals, blended in unnoticed. Disguised as a local Wakandan, Cheetah Barber looked in the direction the hover train was departing. There stood a vast, majestic palace. I must find a way to get into the Wakanda palace, Cheetah thought to herself. I've heard the Wakanda princess is the region's most brilliant technological genius. She might be able to save Xinian's life. I must find a way to kidnap her and take her out of Wakanda. That's my prey. Don't let it go before I get it. Cheetah's beautiful eyes flashed with a feral glint. But then, bang! A Wakandan walking towards Cheetah accidentally bumped into her. Naturally, he couldn't knock her down, but instead stumbled. "Excuse me." The local started to apologize, but mid-sentence, he strangely changed his words. "Cheetah, Barbara Minerva." Cheetah's eyes widened, and she froze in her tracks. The local, having seen through her identity, scratched his head in surprise, then stepped out of her way and left. Then, a passing woman gave her a strange look and whispered, "Stop it." Another added, "Don't harm our peaceful kingdom. Leave immediately. I'll be watching you." Each person finished the entire conversation, without a single pause, as if they'd rehearsed it countless times. The Wakandans blinked in confusion, ignoring the cheetah standing in the middle of the road, and simply walked away. "Who are you? Where are you?" Cheetah glanced around, her fear barely concealed. Immediately, dozens of passers-by stopped and stared at Cheetah. "I'm everywhere. Now, she shouldn't harm our princess, right?" Over the sea, Nian withdrew his gaze from the South African nation of Wakanda. Cheetah, while a supervillain, was also one of Aunt Diana's few remaining friends. That was enough for now. Now, it was time to get down to business. Under the current conditions, we can definitely do it. Nian's thoughts became clear, and his spider senses instantly covered the entire world, continuously scanning the globe. Half a minute later, found it. Nian's eyes flashed with brilliance, and in an instant, he and Xiao Wang vanished from the sky above the sea. Russia. Nestled in the uninhabited primeval forests, a factory building sat. Its location was extremely secret, surrounded by dense forests, and numerous personnel were lurking and guarding it. Armored tanks, machine guns, and other heavy weapons were scattered around the factory building, concealed in the forest with camouflage and traps, making it difficult for even an armed force to penetrate. This was no factory, but a military fortress. This secret fortress was equipped with an invisible energy shield. The building had only 2 floors above ground, but 10 underground. At this moment, on the 10th underground floor, an armed research laboratory was stationed. A small figure in silver battle armor sat quietly on a chair in the laboratory. His armor was covered in scratches and severely damaged. Researchers were disassembling components from his armor. After just one use, the armor is already severely worn. His extreme speed is truly remarkable. Dr. Hydra, the team leader, exclaimed with emotion, "Be careful, cultivate and study him well. He will definitely be one of Hydra's most perfect weapons in the future, far more powerful than the Winter Soldier. Long live Hydra." The researchers had already removed all the armor components except the helmet. At this moment, boom! The cumulus clouds above the mountains and forests, the energy shield of the fortress, the reinforced ceiling of the factory, the floor where the laboratory was located, all obstacles in between, were simultaneously shattered from top to bottom, creating a hole wide enough for human entry. A beam of natural light, slightly dazzling, from outside, fell into the research institute 10 floors underground. What happened? The team leader pushed his glasses up, staring in amazement at the hole in the institute's ceiling, which revealed the sun. Woohoo! The alarm system of Hydra's secret base finally sounded a shrill alarm. Foreign invasion. Chapter 300, finally meeting Quicksilver, ending in 1 second. Enemy attack, enemy attack. Alarms blared throughout the Hydra fortress, and red hazard lights flashed on every level. Even without the alarm system, the Hydra members could tell an enemy was invading. After all, the fortress's energy shield had been instantly breached, penetrating the research labs from the rooftop to the 10th underground level. Light from outside could penetrate the base unimpeded. A military fortress capable of withstanding the assault of a modern armed force had been completely breached without warning. What else could this be but an invasion? But, where were the enemies? Hydra members and researchers looked around in panic. Those in the fortress's monitoring room repeatedly checked the exterior and interior areas of the fortress, from floors 1 to 10, but could find no trace of the intruders. Everything was calm, normal, just like usual. Inside the fortress, only the resounding alarm of foreign invasion echoed. A chill ran down everyone's spine. Unknown attacks and invasions are often the most terrifying, because we don't know how to respond. Fortress base, 10th underground level. Gazing at the dust gently falling from above, the leading doctor gritted his teeth and said, "No matter what, get the important subject out of here first." Understood. Several researchers in white nodded immediately and headed towards the important subject, wearing only a silver helmet. Then, something unexpected happened. Crackling. The sound of falling followed one after another. Before the researchers could even reach the subject, they suddenly lost consciousness, collapsing to the ground like puppets without their strings. What are you doing? The leading doctor was stunned. He instinctively took a step forward, but his nose hurt and blood gushed out, as if he had hit an invisible wall. There's a wall here. The leading doctor covered his nose with one hand and tentatively reached forward with the other, quickly hitting a wall of air. Impossible to pass through. As the leading doctor watched in shock, within the wall of air, a flicker of light and shadow revealed the outline of a young man. A small orange cat lay on the black-haired boy's shoulder. I found you, Nian sighed softly, gazing ahead at the crucial subject sitting in a chair. Hearing his voice, the crucial subject slowly rose from his chair, looking up. A pair of dark eyes glimpsed from beneath his silver helmet. They were a gaze similar to that of the Winter Soldier, devoid of any emotion. With a swish, the young subject moved and vanished in an instant, leaving behind a silver afterimage as it fled the room. Nian's colorful eyes shifted, as if catching sight of Quicksilver, a figure even the surveillance cameras couldn't capture. Don't run, Nian pointed. The subject suddenly stopped, seemingly frozen, at the laboratory door. Nian waved his hand, and the subject flew backward, floating close in front of him. Quicksilver was intercepted? How is that possible? The leading doctor, stunned, determined not to let the intruder take away his most important subject, shouted, "Intruders are in the lab. Help!" But the words were barely finished. Snap! With a crisp snap of fingers, the lead doctor, researchers, and armed personnel, everyone in the fortress, saw their vision go black and collapsed unconscious. Foreign invasion. Even the alarm ceased abruptly, and the vast base fell silent. 1 second, no, less than one. The battle was over. Nian didn't glance at the Hydra personnel the entire time, his attention fixed on the test subject in front of him. As he watched, the silver helmet shattered, revealing a mane of wiry silver hair and a childlike face. Wasn't it Pietro, one of the twins, Wanda's older brother? Pietro floated in the air, his eyes vacant, his body trembling as he stared at Nian, his body devoid of any apparent emotion. Wake up! Nian extended two fingers and touched Pietro's forehead. A mysterious, multicolored light particle seeped in. The next second, the indifference in Pietro's eyes vanished, replaced by a hint of confusion. Brother, why are you here? Pietro exclaimed in exaggerated surprise, gazing at Nian standing before him. Look where you are, Nian said grumpily. Pietro looked around, completely bewildered by the unfamiliar laboratory and the Hydra personnel lying on the floor. Why am I here? They captured you and brainwashed you, Nian replied bluntly. Oh, I remember now. Pietro held his head in his hands, his face pale. The feeling of being brainwashed was naturally unpleasant, like being controlled by a humanoid machine and repeatedly studied as a test subject. Don't worry, I fixed your brain. Maybe you'll be more alert than before, Nian said casually. Brother, please don't say such terrible things in such a casual tone, Pietro said with a look of sorrow, still in shock. Wanda, I've been looking for you, Nian said in a low voice. Pietro was stunned for a moment, then smiled wryly. Really? I miss my sister too. But they're restricting my freedom. I've tried all sorts of ways to escape, but I found that the faster I run, the faster I run. Wanting to escape, so they run faster? This family is truly gifted. Nian sighed to himself, saying, I'll take you to see her. That's great. Pietro's face was filled with excitement, but then he suddenly remembered something and looked at the unconscious Hydra members around him. What should we do with them? Don't worry about them, Nian said, placing a hand on Pietro's shoulder. In an instant, the two of them vanished from their spot. After Nian left, the alarm suddenly rang out again in the Hydra fortress. Self-destruct sequence activated, countdown to 30 seconds. 30, 29, 28. Hundreds of unconscious Hydra members lay unaware, waiting for the countdown to 0. One moment, they were in Russia, the next, they appeared over Nepal. Nian carried the confused Quicksilver Pietro with one hand. How did they get here? It was too fast to see clearly. Wanda, here. Pietro looked down at the city below in a daze. Nian nodded young, and his eyes, which had gathered the 7 extraordinary powers, glowed slightly with the most mysterious colorful light in the universe. Under the eyes of super body mode, One can see the voices of living beings, various forces and energies, communication information flows, things at the atomic level, and various rules and veins. There are no secrets wherever the eye see. Now, Nian also saw very clearly a secluded place hidden in a space crack near Mount Everest. Various force fields and energies were distorted there. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.